dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the ocean night. When you see the Flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now our breath. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must tow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean wind blow. From long ago, the berserker traveled, crossing raging seas, snatching souls, devouring, conquering and beast. The seas could not take me, war could not break me, to feel so alive. Overflowing elation, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war, ready for war. The lands could not hold me, the ocean could not keep me, though she tried. I traveled and conquered many times. Exhilaration swept in with the tide. Oh, the seas could not take me, war could not break me, to feel so
All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. This is PRT. Join us in the real reality. Check and see who we got here. I know this is a Thursday night. Thursday night's usually reserved for members only, or I'm sorry, Patreon, the Lost Encounters on Patreon, which is, doing pretty good. People really like the Patreon, and we do the Lost Encounters now every other week. We do Bigfoot and the Nature of Reality, all 50 states we're covering, and we do that every Monday. But everybody started clamoring for the Monday to come back because you guys wanted to do the call-in show. You wanted the call-in show, and the call-in show is interesting. You never know how it's going to go. This past Monday, we had a guy come on. I don't remember his name off. Peter Young was his name, and he came on.
Nice guy,
and he talked about this wolf-like creature that came into his house and hung him up off the ground or something. Yeah, it was pretty wild. So you get some crazy encounters. We get vampire encounters, which now we pretty much know what those are. Before several years ago, I would like vampires. Like, who the vampire? Lost Boys. You know what I mean? But now we know what they are. So it's a little different now. And the book is done. Today, officially, the book is done, and there's only I think a half chapter left to be edited as of 5:00 this afternoon, and it's going to be turned over to Eddie, and then it's going to be formatted, and it's going to be put onto Amazon for your consumption.
Reading pleasure.
Yeah, vampires, the vampire phenomenon, right? The werewolf book we did very well. The Bigfoot book did okay. Not nearly as good as the werewolf book, which was my first book, and now this one will be my third book, and so I'm really happy. And I'm already halfway through the next one, which was about a haunted house that I lived in for years, and I'm co-authoring that with my brother. And that one's not hard because we interview a lot of people who stayed there in that particular house, and it's just like a lot of weird stuff that went on. But so anyway, that's what's going on. Tomorrow night, I'm on Random Files. And if you're not aware of what Random Files is, I'll save you the trouble in case you don't want to go be a part of it. It is a conservative talk show. But I am, if anybody knows me, I'm a centrist. But everybody's gotten so extreme one way or the other. It's like you have to either be, a fascist or a communist. You can't just be somewhere in the middle where sanity reigns.
You can't just be a normalist.
You can't just be a normalist. You have to be, out there burning the American flag or
be a
whatever.
Circus freak.
So just go and check it out. But if you're easily offended, don't show up. It's just that simple. And then on Rumble, the real Random Files, Saturday night, definitely go check it out if you want to know the real reality of what we're living in here. Then I'm going to give it to you. Right? It's not a lot of paranormal stuff. It's not a lot of weird stuff. It's not Bigfoot. It's not whatever. It's, geopolitical, a lot of it. So if that's something that interests you and you want to know what's going on, current events, and how it really breaks down, I get into the who, why, what, when, where, how. I get into that. So that's what we'll be doing. All right? Because people will show up and be like, hey, what's going on over here? Why are there no ghosts? Because we're talking about, other stuff. And then they did, and then, then they'll go and they'll talk crap in the comment section. There was no Bigfoot or vampires in this whole show. All he did was talk about Israel and Iran. I don't like that. I don't like it, So if you don't want to know, don't show up. But if you do, show up. So let me introduce you to the people that are going to be on this episode here. Because without them tonight, there isn't an episode, right? It'd just be me up here. All right, so let me bring on our guests here. Hey, gentlemen, how are you guys all doing tonight?
Hey, doing good. Kevin.
That's Wayne.
Right, Wayne, Kevin, and Rob. Okay, well, I'm Wolf.
Rob.
And this is these guys are friends with Chris Kramer, who's been on the show multiple times. They got to be pretty nice, patient, tolerant people. They hang out with Chris. I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah.
We'll run with that.
Chris gives me so much crap, and it's really not crap. It's more like I'm an Eagles fan, and it's like every day, like with that, like.
I mean, that's enough crap for one person.
Yeah, I was like, he wakes up every day and he's an Eagles fan. That is got to be like Groundhog Day hell.
We got to pray for him.
Nothing changes. You're just still an Eagles fan.
I like camping with us. You'll see the crap flying.
Chris is a good guy. I like Chris a lot. He's an old friend of mine. He's been about like 8 years I've been friends with this guy. Going back to the Dogman Encounter days. So you guys had something that happened to you, which was absolutely stunning. You guys are so. Let me preface this with that. You guys are Sasquatchers or Bigfooters, right? Is that what you guys do?
We enjoy their company.
For the most part, that's what we do. Is the Bigfoot stuff. I myself, I'm 9 years into doing this with the Sasquatch, the forest people. Probably a little over 15,000 hours out in the field. Rob and Wayne came on 6 years ago ish, something like that.
Yeah,
and,
probably 5, 6
ish.
And we brought Chris on board
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years?
Yeah, right before I moved up here. So, so we spend a lot of time out in the middle of nowhere in central Arizona, up on top of the Mogollon Rim. It's about 7,700 foot altitude where we're at, and we've got multiple locations, and we have multiple different family groups that we deal with, and so when we're out in the forest, that's primarily what we're doing. I mean, we spend a lot of time looking up because it's a beautiful dark sky, and especially when there's no moon out, it just glistens. And this particular spot that we were at week and a half ago ish, a new location, but it's only a couple 100 yards away from one of our primary locations. We've just never spent any time at this particular spot, and all the stars lined up, pardon the pun, for everything to work out perfect on the night of the 6th. But so we're doing the Bigfoot stuff, and we're having some pretty decent activity. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put the activity at like a 9+. We had, at the bare minimum, 10 individuals around us. Before it got completely dark, I actually had another sighting about 80 yards away of a tall, thin one going through the trees. Very large family group in this area that we're very well acquainted with. And, so we were just enjoying our activities, our encounters, and we were actually standing in the middle of this 2-track road, and we're looking up at the night sky, and we're looking at the activity going on around us, and trying to understand some of the activity that we had never seen before. It's like we'd see this black wisp that would go like that, and multiple of those, and in 9 years and 15,000 hours, I've never seen that one before, so that was new. These little twinkle lights and static, and shimmering images walking by, full figures walking by. But at one point, well, I want to back up. Rob doesn't usually sit out with us a lot. He's still employed. He has one of those JOB things, so he doesn't get out with us near as much as we would love him to. And but one of our primary locations, and that's how Rob and I met, was it's an old campsite of theirs. Been camping there, Rob, 30 years, almost 30 years now.
28-ish, yeah.
Yeah, almost 30. Navy guys.
Yeah.
But, so when he's up there with his wife and their family, friends, and that, he's kind of solo mission over there. And Once in a while, he'll sneak away, once everybody's gone to bed, and he'll sit out with us at night. And but typically, when his wife is there, he doesn't have time to get away. So that changed. Rob, you want to tell him what had happened prior to me getting up there on Sunday?
Well, the night before, I was take the dog out, do her last duties and stuff for, she goes to bed for the night. And then I put her in the trailer. Then I was just leaning up against the truck and, just kind of, I knew somebody was around, and I started talking, had a couple of back and forth, but what I got was, you should sit out with Kevin. So I went, okay, no promises. Wayne was coming up the next day, and so it worked out. Figured I would just go that evening with Wayne there, and all three of us would be there. That was the Monday that this happened. I'm not jumping ahead, but I was busy scanning the area when those two were behind me, and I heard all and I looked up with them, and then it was like directly almost 90 degrees above me is when I saw it. I just watched it.
Yeah, well, let's back off that for a little bit and get the preface of this set up before we actually go into the details of it, because that's when it's going to just jump off the charts. But so Rob gets this communication that that he needs to come sit out with me, and Wayne decided he was going to come up just for the day and hang out and do a night sit with us, and so everything was just normal, everything going the way it always does, and just having a lot of good conversations, a lot of good brotherhood, and getting caught up on some things, but so anyway, the night's going on, and we'll just jump into the brass tacks of this, because this is the important part of it. This is why we're here. Something had caught my attention, Wayne as well, and I was pretty sure it was a shooting star. Wayne knows it was a shooting star, but my right side, I'm blind. It's a prosthetic, so I just barely caught this little wisp off the bridge of my nose, off my peripheral from my left eye. And so anyway, I look up, and in just a fraction of a second, mind trying to process immediately what I'm seeing. And the first thought in my mind was, it's a comet. The only point of reference my brain could pull with this was back in 1997, Hale-Bopp comet. I think it was 97. Sat and watched that thing for a week. So that was the first thing that went through my mind, was a comet. And I was like, that ain't a comet. I'm like, guys, are you seeing this? And so, Wayne will, it's kind of the same with you.
Yeah, you were in front of me, and I was walking back. We had been in a little cove in the dark, and he was just a couple of steps in front of me, and I saw the shooting star, and I said, hey. And about that time, Kevin looked up too, and I don't know if he saw the little shooting star. It was nothing spectacular, but that's what drew my attention to the area. And in that exact position, we saw a light. It looks like a little light stick, a little like a little ruler. At arm's length is probably you put your arm out, it's probably an inch long. But it's moving directly north to south. It's moving about the same speed as the satellites that we see, and we see dozens of them every night if we're looking up. So it's going about that speed. It doesn't seem to be illuminated. It seems to be reflecting light. And my brain is just trying to make calculations that it can't do. And I'm thinking that's farther away than the satellites. But being an inch long, a satellite's just a small speck, and they're not big, 8-10 feet across. But this thing appeared to be an inch long, and I'm thinking if it's reflecting the sun, The sun went down almost exactly 2 hours ago, within a minute, 2 hours. So the shadow of the Earth is quite high at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And how far would this thing have to be? So Kevin figured that all out later, but we were all in awe just watching this thing go north to south at about for about a minute and a half, probably give or take 10 seconds. This is about a minute and a half.
Some are right in there, minute to minute and a half.
And it moved quite a ways. So it moved from about my 80, 85 degree angle in the sky to probably a 40 degrees. So that's quite a bit of distance that it traveled in a minute and a half.
And and one thing that we Arizona 4 we never do is we never take our phones out at night. Reason being, your phone's on, you lose your night vision, you can't see anything. The other thing is, I made a promise to the force people I will never do anything to intentionally try and capture their image. If they show up in a picture because I'm taking a picture of something during the day, that's on them. But I will never intentionally try and photograph them. Part of the whole setup of trust that I've built with them over the last 9 years, and so we just don't do that. But I had the wherewithal to go, this is so unusual. Get a picture, so I had enough time to reach on my side, pull the phone out, turn it on, point it up, click, take the picture, look down. Yeah, I got it. Look back up. It's gone. Never would have had enough time to do a video. Plus, being a Galaxy S23 phone, plus it automatically does a prolonged exposure with low light levels. And so I think it was like a half a second exposure. And that's primarily how and why I captured what I captured. And so we're like, yeah, there it is. I got it. So we got, in the center of the screen is this little strip of light. And so then I zoom in on it and I'm like, holy hell, what is this? And, so then I did a screen capture of that and then I blew it up even bigger. And, if you have the ability, I'm sure you do, anytime you want to put them up on the screen, go for it.
Yeah, let me see.
But, being a very, very analytical kind of guy, dove into a lot of quantum physics, quantum theories, because of a lot of the stuff we experienced with the Bigfoot and seen a lot of craft in the sky. As a matter of fact, right before this happened, Rob and I were reminiscing about something that happened at a different location with crafts in the sky and spirals and, just a whole bunch of very unexplainable stuff. But when I realized after I did the first and second zoom of this, that this is something nobody has ever seen before. I was like, okay, let's roll out Starlink. I've seen Starlink trains probably 9 times in all different various phases. Starlink on the 5th did do a launch, but it was over the Atlantic, not over Arizona. So it wouldn't have been visible from central Arizona at 7,700 foot altitude. There was another launch prior to that. That was nowhere in the location, nor would it have appeared as one solid stream of individual or, one solid craft. It would have been multiple separated by quite a bit of a distance, so it absolutely ruled out Starlink and like Wayne was saying, this was reflecting sunlight at 9:29 p.m. on July 6th. There was no moon out. The moon was a long way away. So in order for something to reflect sunlight and still be visible from the surface of the earth 2 hours after the sun has set, you're a minimum distance of about 943 miles away up to 1,256 miles away to still be visible with sunlight reflecting off it. And like Wayne said, it's about an inch, inch and a half in length at arm's reach away. So just doing the simplified math, we'll say it's 900 miles away, and it was an inch and a half long. That puts that at roughly 56 to 65 miles in length. And that's if that's all the farther away it is. We all talked, we all agreed that, it appeared that it was much farther than that away. And the satellite band goes out 12,200 and something miles. If that craft was outside of that satellite band, that's 1,000-mile long craft. I'm still trying to figure out how to process this. I mean, I've seen, the darting lights in the sky. I've got a photograph of a big metal sphere up over the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. And, I saw my first triangle craft probably around 1974, camping at Lynx Lake in Prescott, Arizona. I've seen a lot of stuff in the skies. Never have I ever seen anything like this. And, still trying to figure out what to do with it, mentally. Guys,
I'm waiting for Rob to chime in here.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Rob.
Rob.
If you got something to say.
All I can say is it was massive. I was looking at it, if he pops a picture up, you'll be able to see it. The lights that were reflecting, they were various sizes. They were not equally spaced. They were not in line. There's like a shadow to the left side as you're looking at it, because the sun was setting to the right side. So the right side of this thing was lit up. It was different. I had a few UFO sightings and stuff. The first two, and one of them was a Hummer, started back in my hometown in Luray, Virginia. And I've had a couple out here. Two is with Kevin. It was definitely was that? But this thing had to be big, and I couldn't get it.
Sorry to interrupt, Rob. As I'm looking at the pictures again, one of the things I didn't bring up, if you bring up the one where it's sideways, all I did was a rotate on it just to get a different vantage point of it. And Chris Kramer was like Battlestar Galactica. And I kind of laughed about it, and it kind of looks like that, except it's the back of the ship that's going forward. So it doesn't work for Battlestar Galactica. But anyway, you can see three-dimensional shapes with 90-degree angles on this, multiple different facets of structure, shadows being cast from the sunlight off of those large structures. And if you think about, the largest craft that mankind has ever built is a super tanker, just a little bit bigger than a super carrier. 1,200 and something feet long, just over a quarter of a mile. And this thing, it has to be at the altitude to be able to have sunlight reflecting off it. So we'll just say it's 56 miles in length.
That's unfathomable for me.
Who built it? What'd they build it out of? Who's driving it? Where'd they come from? Where are they going?
You can see the shadows. You can see the shadows on the zoom. You can see that both sides are what look to be perfectly parallel and straight. That's not natural. It has all the markings of being man-made. Just in that blow up there. Now I've seen most things that you can see in the sky, stars and shooting stars and asteroids and meteorites and comets and fireflies. Some person said, "Oh, what you saw was probably a firefly." That's an ignorant statement, and it tells me that that person doesn't want to take in information and learn anything from it, and probably has never seen a firefly, because if you did, you don't watch a firefly for over a minute. They go for about a quarter of a second, usually in an arc, and they're flying, and they're usually in your yard or the next door neighbors. Nothing like this.
Well, this thing also held a straight line.
I'm sorry?
And it followed a straight line.
Yeah, it was on.
Let's say it was a rock. If it was a rock, it'd be tumbling.
Perfect straight line.
And
yes.
And when I looked at it, when it was directly above me, this goes back to my Navy days, submarine, whatever. The angle on the bow, this angled to us, it stayed straight going away from us. It didn't like it curved in the earth. And we watched it, and it was for about a minute and a half or so until we couldn't see it anymore. And so it didn't go down below the horizon like that. It just went out, and it was gone.
Like someone turned the lights off, like a dimmer. It just went, it was gone.
And one of the things I also would like to state, because so many different times that, I come forward with various on our channel and, what kind of drugs are these guys smoking? Rob served inside a submarine. Well, he was on one once in a while, but Rob was in the silent service. He very educated man. His career path right now. He works in the semiconductor industry. Wayne was infantry in the military, retired postal service.
Building and equipment maintenance.
Mechanic. I've been a mechanic my whole life, served in the military, of course, Operation Desert Storm, combat veteran. All three of us are trained in observation. We're not a bunch of guys out here going, "Oh, look at that, man," crack another beer. It's a matter of, clear thinking the best you can when you come across something like this, because there's no frame of reference in the brain when you see this. Looking at it on a picture is one thing, but to be standing there live, looking up in the sky and seeing that picture that's on the screen right there, traveling as fast, maybe a little faster, but at least as fast as a satellite travels, and well outside the atmosphere. How do you wrap your head around it? So we've done a lot of due diligence with this. We have had a lot of deep conversation. Let's rule this out. Could it have been Starlink? Well, we ruled out Starlink. We ruled out, everything possible. The mathematics behind it, which is what I'm sticking to, because math doesn't lie. And the sun is reflecting off of it 2 hours after sunset, minimum 900 miles away, 56, 63-mile craft.
And it could have been farther out than that.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Even if we're way off on our figures and our research, unfathomable size of a man-made object moving under intelligent control.
Yeah.
Well, and cautiously saying man-made, it's not a artifact. It was built by something, someone, somewhere.
There's intelligence there.
The amount of material that it would take to build that is, mind-numbing. So, I mean, can I open this up for questions or?
I want to interject here just a minute. Let's put it the other back on there, and that's the better image right there to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so you guys don't know me that well. I don't know you that well, but I'm going to go ahead and say some things that may sound kind of strange at first. But if I had a nickel for every time that a Sasquatcher or anybody who's been out looking for Bigfoot, and some people are crazy, they go out looking for dogman and werewolves. I saw one when I was 15. I don't need to go look for another one. I know they exist. Man, I'd be rich. I mean, there are so many people who, they will go out. There was a lady recently in Maine. This is just an example. And she heard noises in the back of her house. The house is notoriously haunted. She brought another lady on to talk to me on the phone that was a neighbor and was like telling me all these wacky things she'd seen. They're in the backyard and they see a Bigfoot about 30 yards from them. It didn't do anything. It just walked back into the woods. But when they heard the noise, and she's like, what do you think it was doing back there? And I said, well, here's an idea. What if it heard the same thing you did and it was inspecting it? What if it was the thing that was making the noise? Maybe it was part of the haunting. You don't know. Then her friend says, well, we've also seen UFOs. She's like, it was late July, and we thought it was fireworks. People were still playing with fireworks out there, and we saw UFOs. It was 3 days of stuff, and they sent me some photos. They didn't look like this, but you could see they looked almost like orbs in the sky to me, but they were moving around and coming apart. That's what they were telling me. This stuff is all connected. It is really all connected. And I know that the UFO community, and I was at a UFO conference not too long ago, and they're like, oh, you're a cryptid researcher. Oh, you're a ghost researcher. They didn't really know how to label me. Well, I said, well, I'm a Fortean researcher because I do believe that it's all connected. When I started speaking, everybody was like, oh, okay. At my conference, which was considered a dogman conference, really, but there were Bigfoot people there, and there were ghost people there, and there were UFO people there. And we had these different panels, right? It was a 3-day event. There were 600 and something people there. It was a nice conference, and you had a nice mix of different people with different opinions. And what I've done tons and tons of research. And whenever I interview anyone, no matter whether they've seen a ghost, a vampire, a dogman, whatever, I always ask them the same thing. Have you had an NDE or an OBE? It's yes or no. Well, I don't know exactly. They'll tell me what it is that they have had, and I'll tell them what I think it is and how it's connected to what they're talking about. Sometimes it connects. Sometimes it doesn't really seem to. Most of the time it does. And then I'll always ask them, have you ever been abducted? And that doesn't mean necessarily that you were just abducted by aliens. Some people have been abducted by Bigfoot. Some people have been abducted by what I believe are the Fae. There are people who've been taken to the court, of the Fae. There are people who have been underground. There was a lady, a Chinese woman from Georgia. She's from China. Her daughter got in touch with me. And she says, my mother was abducted. Well, I'm thinking alien abduction. No, she was taken by these weird little elf-like creatures, and she was underground for like a month. She went missing. This was in China when this happened, in north central China. So this is what I think. This craft is reminiscent to me of like different types of alien species. They are much larger than humans. So they would be able to walk around in a craft that would be more comfortable for them, because some of these beings can be 15 to 20 feet tall, in particular the drakes. And what drakes are reptilians. And people say, oh, that's just nuts, man. That's nuts. Well, they said that about that weird island with all the stuff that was going on, and I was talking about it 20 years before it popped off. Same thing with the drakes, the reptilians. Now we have Fox and CNN who've literally come out and said there are 4 alien species: Nordic, insectoid, reptilian, and the grays. And then they said there's another being that we don't know that it's off-world, but it's plasmoid. Well, that's the jinn. That's what the Quran. I'm not an Islamic, but they explain it more in the Quran than in the Bible. In the Bible, they talk about spirits, but they're specific in the Quran. And they talk about how they exist at right angle from right angle. It's very mathematical. I like what you guys have done. You gentlemen have said, okay, we estimate that this is about 900 miles. Well, and people think, well, that's an incredibly far, 1,000 miles out there. Not really, when you consider the moon is what, 238,000. Is it 238,900, 230, something like that?
Yeah, right in that ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. So the moon is that far away. I still don't believe that we went there. And it's not because now we don't have the technology. I think we're not welcome there. I don't think that we ever went there. I always thought it was ridiculous. In 1969, they're picking up a telephone. Hey, we're talking, and I just don't believe it because the phone has a cord. Like, what is there? It's like I made a joke on the show the other day where the reason we don't go back to the moon is because we don't have enough material to make a cord long enough to get there. We're trying to get somebody to contract that, right? but honestly, the moon is a no-go zone because the moon is a base. I say things and people think I'm crazy, but then it pops off later on. I started talking about vampires a few years ago, and now everybody's talking about it. These vampires, right? These things, these people that are doing these things, they drink blood. That's what they do. They're looking for adrenochrome, and they're actually taken in by a demonic entity that attaches to the back. And some of these people have come and talked about how it works, and then you're going like, oh, that actually jibes with a lot of the old legends. It doesn't fit exactly, but that's close enough. And then you get these images like this that looks like an alien craft, and you guys were out there looking for Bigfoot, right? That's a lot of times that's how it happens. It's just you're in the right place at the right time, and you had the visibility, and you saw this craft. And now, if it was me and I had to put money on it, I would say that it's one of these alien species. And the craft is extremely large. They're extremely large because they're large beings, but they also have to live there for a long period of time as they travel. And they don't just travel the way we do. They fold time and space and they go through these, wormholes, but they literally can move through time and space with that craft. So these craft are built to last. I think that they are built with semi-biological material too. They can adapt to the environment, and they can come in and out of our whatever, our atmosphere.
And a lot of that we can absolutely speculate, and and I agree, it belongs to somebody. Somebody built it, and what civilization it was. It's kind of irrelevant to the fact that there it is. I know a lot of people like to tie Bigfoot to the UFOs, and I saw Bigfoot and then I saw a UFO, and and that's a lot of coincidentals, but it's my experience. I spend probably more time out doing this than just about anybody. And when I say coincidental, it's like a bird flies down and grabs a lizard. No, well, the lizard and the birds are, they're in cahoots together. No, the bird's doing what the bird does and the lizard's doing what the lizard does. But to speak with a surety, I can't and I won't. And and I have a lot of issue when somebody speaks on on these subjects with absolute surety, because the bottom line is it's all speculation. We've never witnessed anything bending space. We've never witnessed anything going inside and out of time. We have witnessed things going in and out of dimensions. I've seen more Bigfoot go into thin air than you could shake a stick at, and and I sit there and like I said, I dove into quantum physics, trying to understand this stuff to the point where it made my brain hurt. And I just came up with the bottom line is they do what they do and they do it.
I don't know why.
I don't know why they do anything. I don't. Yeah, exactly. We don't know why. We've got a lot of experiences, and sometimes we hear stories from other people that line up pretty close, if not right on, with a lot of the stuff that we experience. But right now, what I'm stuck on is just the mass. Here's my brain is just scrambled with this. I've watched Bigfoot run, a 12-foot individual run through the dense forest, probably 1,600 pounds at 45, 50 miles an hour, making no more noise than a butterfly, breaking no branches, and leaving absolutely no trace, or they leave one footprint. I'm sitting and looking at one, and and I get up and I start walking towards him, and he just vanishes into thin air. Got another juvenile I'm watching for 2.5 minutes that, standing so still, I'm second guessing whether I'm even looking at him. The mind speak, the shimmering image, I call it shimmering images. Most people call it cloaking. I hate the term cloaking. But just so much unusual off the wall stuff that it's taken me several years to be able to just go, it is what it is. But this craft, just the immensity behind this thing. That's the part that people need to try and wrap their heads. I was there looking at it. We were there looking at it. I don't know where to put it upstairs. I mean, we've all seen the sci-fi movies and, the Star Destroyers and those are massive but that's sci-fi, that's
even in sci-fi, they're not that big.
Yeah. That's a movie, it's a comic, it's
fantasy.
This was the real deal. Live on Memorex, in a living color, however you want.
Good.
So let me ask you this. So you honestly, with all due respect, but you believe that this is a coincidence, that if anybody sees UFO in Bigfoot area, that there's no connection at all ever?
There's different opinions.
Okay, so yeah. No, I'm not saying that there's not a connection, because everything in the universe is connected. Everything. Interdimensional, 3D, 2D, 1D, everything is connected. Everything is created for its purpose. I absolutely believe that, emphatically. One of the communications that I got right after that happened was, you were meant to see that. Who did the communication come from? I'm pretty sure I know who it came from, but I can't be 100% dogmatic. But I was told we were meant to see that.
I've been doing this about 8 years. My first experience was when I was a teenager up in Washington State, and then I've had several through, and I don't count hours, but I've been out a lot. I've spent a lot of days. More times than not, we get activity. Not all the time do we see, full figures. More times than not, we just see, upright figures walking between trees that is in the shadows in the dark. Whether or not there is any kind of UAP involved, I've never seen it. That doesn't mean it's not involved at some level at some time, but it doesn't mean, like some people will take the two and figure out the equation and come up with an answer that, yes, they are definitely one is with the other, and I can't get on that ship because I haven't seen it, and I've seen a lot.
So one of the things I'll give you one of my first experiences back in 2017. I'm out in the forest all alone, and I see this red light up in the tree, and I'm thinking, oh, brake light, somebody's out here. It's bottom of a coal mine dark. And I thought, there ain't nobody out here. The road's too rough. I would hear any type of a vehicle. And this orb comes out from behind this pine tree that, the orb was probably 100+ feet up in the air, big ponderosa pine tree. And from my vantage point, this orb, bright red, was about the size of a volleyball, basketball maybe. So the realistic size of it was probably like a beach ball. But I'm sitting there watching this thing going, what the hell is that? And the first thing that goes through my mind is Travis Walton. Now, I've met Travis Walton. I lived in Snowflake, Arizona for a brief period back in the early mid 80s. He was over at my friend's mom's house, had lunch with him, heard the whole story. Where I was at when this orb happened, as the crow flies, about 14 miles from where he was abducted and about 3 miles away from where he was returned. So believe you me, this was going through my head, at that time. I was like, what is this? And what's, I got nervous. And like we've said, we've seen a lot of stuff up in the skies. But does that emphatically mirror the two together? No, it doesn't. A lot of speculation.
I don't think one encounter does. I think that about 1,000 of them do. One of the things I can say, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rupert Sheldrake, the author, the British author. He wrote about morphic resonance. One of the things in that theory that he espouses is that everything is connected. And it is something, and then it gets kind of, I'm a very realistic person. I try to be. People will latch onto that and go, well, that means that everything, if you see a ghost and then Bigfoot and aliens are right there. That doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that it's every time it's always going to be the same. No, that's not the case at all. There are people who've seen Bigfoot, thousands of people who've seen it every year, and they don't see UFOs. They don't see anything else. They just see that. But there are a lot of people who see multiple things. In fact, in my book, The Bigfoot Phenomena, I actually talked with a witness who passed away. And her name was Claudia Ackley. She was on TV. She actually sued the state of California to the proof of that Bigfoot was real. She passed
I know you're
away.
talking about that.
Yeah, and she had encounters with these things. Now, there are people who have multiple phenomena, the things that go on. Me personally, I've had a lot of weird things happen. I've seen the same UFO 3 times, and I had never seen one until 2017, the year that I got with my wife. And it just looked like a BB in the sky, and it came out, and it got bigger and bigger, and then it went away. And it was the first time I saw it was in Round Rock, and I was doing a security job for a large construction company. I had a very large contract with this company, and so I had to go sit post. I didn't do it all the time, but if you're shorthanded, you got to do it, right? And so I saw this. I saw it again another time on a place called Purgatory Road, where it is extremely haunted. There's an old cemetery from the 1830s there, and there's a black dog that chases people. There's this goat-headed entity that people say, and I've had him on the show. I've actually interviewed one of them, and I've talked about this before, and it's right there in a place called Devil's Backbone, right in Central Texas. Very haunted place. A guy named Burt Wall kind of put it on the map. He was on Unsolved Mysteries. And it was interesting that I saw it there, but just because I saw the second one there doesn't mean that was the third time. That doesn't mean that that's there because but it is peculiar, to say the least, that there are people who will see all of these ghosts. They see Confederate soldiers, Spanish soldiers, Comanches, Apaches, and then they see a lot of UFOs and a lot of Bigfoot. Me and my brother actually mapped it out in the late 90s or in the mid 90s, and we did blue push pins for Bigfoot and red for Dogman encounters. This is what we found out, which was really weird. And this ties into the UFO thing. It was bizarre. We didn't start doing the UFO thing until our friend John was like, hey, what about UFO encounters? And he introduced us to this other guy named Keith, that was William, who had seen UFOs, a bunch of them, and he had photos of them. Now, back then, we didn't have the intranets and this stuff, that solves all the mysteries of the universe. You just had a regular camera. He was out there, and the photos looked kind of, but some of them were good. Some of the pictures, and some of them were Polaroid. So, it is what it is. But the thing we found about the Devil's Backbone, Purgatory Road, that whole area, right, between these rivers, the Blanco and the Guadalupe, when you looked at this, the Canal, I guess it would be, you saw that that in the east is where the Bigfoot primarily were. And then in the west, near the Blanco, is more where the Dogman creatures were seen. And then they had an overlapping boundary. And then you really didn't see much on the other side. So they kind of kept to themselves. That shows that there is something. They have an intelligence. They have something. And it was bizarre. But the ghost reports were all over the place. They were everywhere. And then there were these things.
I could tell you ghost stories all day long.
All day.
Yeah.
I picked one up at Fort Knox, Kentucky, Confederate soldier. We called him Bob, and still to this day, once in a while, he'll show up. Light switch will get turned on, or TV
an attachment.
Yeah, and I'm very, very familiar with ghosts.
Yeah,
I really am.
1 in 2 people has actually seen a ghost. That's the thing, But then you start getting reports of something that was kind of in between, and we didn't know what it was, especially in the 90s. We were just like amateur paranormal, whatever, fumbling around in the dark. We didn't really know what we were doing. I just know what I had seen in 1990 when I was a 15-year-old kid, And I remember us talking to some of these ranchers out there, and it was because my friend, who's probably in the chat, I don't know if he's in the chat, Scorpion, he was working at this place, and one of his bosses lived out there. So he was nice enough to let us go out there and talk to some of the neighbors, and we did some research, and we talked to several of these ranchers out there, and they would see these entities that would appear and disappear, and a couple of them saw the Bigfoot doing that, disappearing, reappearing. So we did not know, is this a ghost? Is this a what is this? So it's something kind of in between. But then the UFOs, there was one area in particular near Wimberley, Texas, where people were seeing these UFOs. And it was in the 3-year span where there was a bunch of them, but then they were seen in multiple spots. And so we covered a bunch of paranormal phenomena out there. We interviewed a bunch of people, and we even believed that we picked up a hitchhiker of a person that was actually deceased. And that's another story. We did a whole show about it. There was 5 of us that picked this guy. We gave him a ride, and they just sat in the back of the truck, and we dropped him off, and then the place turned out to be abandoned. It's a weird thing, but the phenomena overlaps for sure. And so it doesn't surprise me that you guys saw something like that. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you guys saw that, but and I understand that you guys say, hey, well, this isn't connected, and I don't know if it is or not, but I do know that I have done a lot of research on the UFO phenomena, not really because I'm so interested in UFOs, but because I'm trying to figure out what this phenomena is and how they move in and out of our world. I think they use some of the same doorways that Bigfoot, Dogman, and Goatman, and all these other creatures do. I do believe that. I have to ask you guys a question.
Well, let me jump in real quick before you ask the question. Now, when I say they're not connected, what I'm saying, why I'm saying that is that I don't think, I can't say dogmatically, but I don't think that my forest friends stepped off of this craft and said, hey, this thing's going to be coming by. You need to look up in the sky. But to what you were saying, the interdimensional, the knowledge, I mean, the knowledge that the forest people have, the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, I call them forest people. The knowledge they have is far, far beyond what we can wrap our heads around. So I'm confident they have an intimate knowledge of all these other species. I'm confident that, they have the ability to step in and out of dimensions. And when I say that is because I've seen them do it. I've seen, a forest person, full solid, middle of the day, or let me back up, not middle of the day, twilight, walking, turns into this shimmering image, which looks almost like Predator. And then it starts wisping into almost ghost image. And then this little twinkle light just pops out of it. And then there's nothing there. That's one of those things that, you sit there and go, how the hell does that happen? It doesn't matter how it happens. It just happens. I quit trying to figure out a lot of that stuff a long time ago. The Bigfoot, the forest people, they're operating at a different vibrational frequency than we do. That's the reason why we can see anything is because of vibrations and frequencies. And if they're existing outside of that and they're slowing or speeding up their vibrational frequency to come into view and then to leave the view, because I firmly believe that they're operating inside of a frequency outside of what most people understand. That's why I've been hunting in the forest my entire life, and I've never seen anything. Well, you know what? I've been in the forest, and long distance backpacker, wilderness survival specialist, tracker. I hunting, I do all that, and I never seen them until I did.
Then you can't. Then you can't say no.
Yeah. Then you can't unsee it. But so they're operating in a different field of view, of different vibration, a different dimension. However you want to, whatever title you want to tag to it, that's where they're operating at. And in order to operate there, they're not the only ones that are operating there. We're bound to the laws of physics. They're not. And I think that's the same with a lot of these alien, quote unquote alien species, and that they're outside of the laws of physics.
I can take that one step further and get away from our forest people position and say that the mediums and the your not pagans, the people that see and have interactions with the spirit world. They're actually there. They're definitely there. I've seen them, but not everybody can, because they're not on the right frequency themselves. So whether or not you see something might be because of their frequency, or might have something to do with yours as well. Just something.
What I was going to ask is if you guys had ever heard of Kozarev's mirror.
Heard of what?
Kozarev's mirror. He was a physicist from Russia years ago during the Cold War, and he did like 15 years in the Gulag because he liked freedom. So yeah, par for the course, because he was smart, and they made him. He was a threat. Eventually he was released, but when he was locked up in isolation, he was in the dark for like 14 hours a day, and so. Even through all of this, he managed to create something that to this day they believe bends space and time. People who've sat in it say that you go back into the past, you go into the future. And if done correctly, it could be a little bit of a time machine. Now, it's not going to take you, let's go look at the Civil War. That's not how it works. But it does move you out of linear space and time. And then there is this whole his name was Nikola Kozarev. Anybody wants to look it up, there is this whole kind of cult like community that's grown up around it, and a lot of paranormal researchers. It was the predecessor of the God helmet. I don't know if you know what that is. And the people who've worn it have claimed to have seen, and they have an inordinately large number of encounters with things like Bigfoot, Dogman, things like that, which it put me squarely in the camp of maybe this isn't just flesh and blood. Now, I had an encounter in 1990 with something that looked like a werewolf. I didn't know what a Dogman was. I'd never heard that term, but it got me started on the whole paranormal whatever. And people ask me all the time, they're like, seeing that creature, did it exhibit? And people that are flesh and blood people who want to believe that that's flesh and blood and Bigfoot's just flesh and blood, and they always try to trip you up. So they ask me the question, well, did you have anything metaphysical happen during your encounter? And the answer is absolutely not. This thing appeared to be completely physical to me. My encounter was experienced by a whole family. My friend and his family, they saw this creature. It manipulated physical matter. It did things completely physical. It did not turn into a ball of light. It didn't do anything metaphysical that I witnessed myself. However, 29 years later, my friend was working, my friend's brother, the one that saw this creature, but he was working doing construction at a house that was notoriously haunted. The guy that lived there had committed, he'd killed himself. And I know on YouTube you're supposed to say unalived himself. Okay, so yeah, I
don't play those.
we don't want to hurt the algorithm, make people mad, okay, and hurt people's feelings. So, anyways, he unalived himself, right? So this guy, and so we would hear and see things. We'd be walking by there in the evening as teenagers, and we dare each other, go look in the window, And there was never a tenant there for very long. They couldn't keep people there. So my friend's brother, he was there doing remodeling, and me and Anthony, who's my co-host and my nephew, one of my co-hosts, we were there and we were dropping off. We do this food drive every year, and we have like steak and stuff like that. And we took it to his dad. There's one of the people we drop it off to every year. His dad's disabled. and he's a veteran like you know, so he's a disabled vet, and always go by there and drop him off. And so we ended up going to that house. He said, oh, he's working over there. So I went down to this. We knew it as the haunted house on that street. So we went in there. I started talking to him. While we were talking, we were in one room. The room where the man passed away, we heard a loud bang. We go into that room, and the sawhorses had fallen inward, and there was wood, you know, and he was like, wow. And, you know, we heard this bang, and he had stripped the carpet, so it was nothing but like concrete, right? And we just kind of looked at each other, and he kind of did that do, you know, like Twilight Zone thing, and we walked out. And he started talking to Anthony. He says, has he ever told you about what we saw back in October of 1990? And Anthony goes, yeah, I've heard the story from him and Daniel. That's my friend. This is his older brother. And he goes, yeah, it's crazy, dude. He goes, I saw that thing walk right by the window. And there was this black vapor coming off the back of its neck. And I'm kind of sitting there looking at my phone, and I'm like, what? I kind of stopped. I was 2019. I was like, what are you talking about? Vapor. I never heard this before. 29 years. And I said, you've never told me that. And he goes, you never asked. I thought I was a researcher. I thought I was a person that knew how to ask questions. That taught me a lesson. 29 years, and this guy had seen something metaphysical from this creature that I had never seen. But I believe that was pivotal, because at that point, I began to go into the Dogman and Bigfoot community and start taking reports from the people that were cast out as apostates because it didn't fit the narrative, that they were not completely flesh and blood, and that they were a different breed of, they're not animals. They're not like people either. And like you guys said, there's a vibration. You never see apers becoming, or you see apers becoming, you know, our side, seeing that they're different. They're not just simple animals, but you never see people going from the metaphysical side and going, you know what, they're just dumb animals. And that's what they are. You never see that. You don't see that. You see it the other way. It's kind of like you don't really see people on the right going and becoming, shouldn't say that, because people tend to evolve mentally and spiritually. So they become smarter. They do.
I like this guy more than I thought.
They look and they go, this is crazy time. Why is there 72 genders? You know, because there's not. There's two. But see, the point though is that people don't, you're elevating yourself, you know, so then you become a little bit smarter about it. And you guys have been out there for so long. So it's I'm not going to say for 100% one way or the other that was like, oh, you saw that because you were looking out for Bigfoot, because if that was the case, you probably would have saw it a long time ago, right? Because you've been out there for so long.
Well, but here's what I think happened, you know, so Rob doesn't sit with it, you know, and I really didn't have a whole lot of plans of going out, but I wanted to go out, and I wanted to go out, and Wayne wanted to go out, and Chris was, you know,
he wanted to go too, but
he wanted to go too, and he ended up with another vehicle issue, and you know, so we were hoping to just get the whole four of us together for a brief period, because it doesn't happen as much as we'd like it to. But so anyway, I decided, you know, kind of last minute, yeah, I'm going up. Chris, you going? He goes, yeah, I'm 98%. And Wayne's like, yeah, I'll come. I got things to do, but I'll come up for the day and do a night sit. Perfect. You know, so we got out there. Rob got the message. You need to sit out with Kevin. Wayne gets out there on this particular day. It's not like it was just any random day. It was the particular day it had to be. And where we normally have our camp set up, kind of over by where Rob's camp was, we would have never seen it because of the tree cover. We're out on a knoll, and you know, and there's an, you know, kind of an open field, and so it just gave us this immaculate sky. And you know, being it was a new spot, we're like, well, we don't know where to sit. We don't know which direction to face. You know, we sit down in one spot and can't see over the knoll. And so it turns out that we're just on our feet all night
walking
long.
Around. And
that doesn't always, you know, very rarely happens that we're actually standing. We're usually just sitting and, you know, having conversations, and we have our areas where most of the activity happens, but everything lined up in order for us at that right moment to go, what is that? And then I get, you were meant to see it. So like I was saying earlier, everything in the universe is connected. Some things are a lot more connected to each other, as far as understanding how they knew this was going to happen, how we ended. You can go a million different directions with it. The bottom line is they brought us out there, put us on, because I decided I wanted to stay on that spot, and I've never stayed on that spot before. And it just all the stars lined up. And, for us to be able to, if it would have been a minute later that we looked up, we would have never seen it. Or if it had been a minute sooner, we'd never seen it. It all happened at that exact moment, the right way, for us to look up and go, holy shit. Oh, let me get my phone. Boom. Got it. And it's over. It was that quick.
I had my phone. I had actually turned my phone off and put it in my Jeep because I kept getting text messages, and every time I'd have to look at it to see who it was and answer it. Then I didn't have any night vision for 5 minutes, and that was getting aggravating. So I had turned mine off and left it in the Jeep, or I would have had it in my pocket and taken a picture as well.
I could have turned the Starlink. We're operating on Starlink out there now. So.
Yeah, we've been on.
I probably got to drive 12-mile round trip to go out and call Mama a couple times a day, let her know I'm safe.
Not anymore.
Before I left to go over to the area, as I was walking out, something told me grab my camera or phone, and I never do that. But I grabbed it. It wasn't on, and I had it in the front part of my quad. And when I saw this thing, I knew there's no way that I would be able to turn that phone on, get it booted up before this thing was out of sight. So I just sat there and I just stared at it and I analyzed it. I just soaked it in, every detail that I could. But I would have never thought of grabbing my camera because, as Kevin said earlier, we don't sit out with cameras. We don't have, guns sitting out with us, whatever. They don't like those. So out of that respect, I had the phone sitting off, and there's no way I knew that I could get that booted up before this was on. So I just sucked up the view and I was analyzing it. I was running all the things through my head, and it was the same long. I wish I would have had my camera on, so I would have grabbed it, but yeah, I missed that boat.
So let me ask you this: you're very comfortable going out there with no firearms, nothing to protect yourself.
When the group got together, they weren't exactly not looking for apes. That was still part of the equation. But you can run through the forest all day long, strap a gun to your hip and a camera to your head, and run around trying to get pictures. And once in a while, maybe you get something, but you don't get regular activity. So we said, if these are people, because they have family units, they believe in the creator, they have language, they have hierarchy. Why don't we just talk to them, try to get to know them, try to earn their trust? So we told them, we said, okay, no guns, no lights, no cameras, and we won't lie to you. Game on. Let's interact. So we're not researchers. We're experiencers.
Well, I'm not saying we don't. All of us don't have guns.
Oh no, I always have firearms in the field. They're on my vehicle and my trailer.
Yeah,
never on me.
Yeah, they know it's not for them. They know it's for the dangerous humans that I might cross. But
right.
Yeah, I can speak for me. I'm packing, but not while I'm sitting outside or nothing like that.
No.
And walking around,
I don't think guns will hurt them in my opinion. Anyway,
That's
I know
not
that
the
there
point.
are a
think
few
it will.
people who
That's not-
claim to have done something to Bigfoot and Dogman
Yeah.
through the eyes or things like that. But these things, I just don't think that that's how it works. I just don't.
Yeah, I fail to believe a firearm will do anything to them.
No.
Well,
But you know, at most I might have a knife with me. But one of the things that I was told back when I first started doing this in 2017, and you know, and just giving you the story of how this all started for me, you'd need probably I've done a lot of shows that were an hour and a half, and you just barely start getting into it by the time the show's over. There's so much and so many details that are involved in this. With the primary family group I was dealing with, an individual that I named Indy. His name was Yeadengon. Very, very long story to it. But the bottom line is I was told by him that when I'm out there, I'm protected. I trust him. I believe him. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time in the wilderness, military, did martial arts for a long time, grew up on the streets, border of South Phoenix, Tempe, Arizona, kind of a rough neighborhood. So been through combat. I've faced death more times than I can even care to admit. I'm not afraid of anything. Now, has things happened that has scared the hell out of me? Yeah. But, am I afraid that, something will happen and I'll end up dead? No, it doesn't bother me. I should have been dead 35 years ago. Shouldn't have lived through what I did. But, does that mean I'm going to go out and dance in a minefield and play recklessly? No, I don't. There's been a few times that, something has happened that it's like, I'm out of here. But in general, as much time as I've spent, especially alone out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, Arizona, with these individuals all around me, if they were the big, nasty, mean things that so many people try to portray them as, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of this computer talking to you right now. I can promise you that.
Got a couple of things about the firearm. It's not that we don't have them. It's that we want to present ourselves as not non-threatening, and that we don't think we need to protect ourselves from them. So we'll sit out, and if it's almost all the time, one or two or all of us will get out and just walk through the pitch black forest, just to listen and look, and we're not afraid to do that. Now, I do believe that they're a massive population, and just like people, there's some that have
Ill will.
different tendencies or rules, and some of them are a little more protective of their environment, and you get a lot of stories that people are scared to death because they were throwing things at them, or they're screaming at them, or they charged them. Not going to say that something couldn't happen, but I'm going to say that in my understanding, they're just trying to get you to leave their area, scare them away.
I think it's more people misinterpreting exactly what's going on. Will they test your metal? Yeah, they'll test your metal.
Especially the young ones.
Yeah, well, okay. I like to put it this way: children or juveniles act like juveniles. Teenagers, they act like teenagers. Hey, let's go mess with them.
Yeah, and they do stupid things.
And it's just like, hey guys, knock it off, and they stop. Yeah. I mean, just literally that simple. I've had my tent shaken, like you hear the stories, and it woke me out of a dead sleep. PTSD kicked in, and I was just like, whoa! Yelled at them, and I hear this, oh, and he starts walking away. Like, you don't got to leave. Just don't wake me up like that. You can't do that. So being upfront with them, being honest with them, communicating with them. And, not all of them are interested in communicating. The old ones, they care less about us. Just like people. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, if the viewers here are wanting to know what to do, you don't sit out with a gun and you don't sit out with a camera. Bright flashlights and stuff, those are pretty much no-nos. But when you're sitting around and we don't have a campfire, and it's not because of them, it's because it messes up the human eye. But what you talk about will either repel them or attract them.
Matters.
If you talk about guns and shooting and violence and stuff like that, they don't want nothing to do with it. They don't want their young around you. And we've learned that lesson. Also, if you're sitting around and you are talking biblical, or you're talking what you think they are, they're all ears. And they come in. But it's what you can repel them or attract them. Now, if they don't like you, they're not going to be around, whatever. But that's just something for the people to know. And I've learned that in how I analyze things, whatever. And we've learned it too, where we get off and start telling war stories, or hey, I did this, and then all of a sudden the area goes quiet. We find out a day or so later that they got mad because we were saying some things they didn't want the young ones to hear. Crazy as it sounds.
Crazy town.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the people running around trying to get pictures of them, running around the forest with cameras and video cameras and trail cameras, I did all that, and I come to the realization, you run around the forest acting like the paparazzi, you're not gonna, you might have something happen here or something happen there. Put away the technology and just welcome them in and
earn their trust.
Earning the trust.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I don't know how you believe biblically, and I'm not going to assume. I see a cross behind you.
I'm a ordained minister. I'm born again Christian. I'm very, very well versed in scripture and extra biblical texts, and
he's that's him.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about? Yeah. So I have a question. What do you guys know about because like everybody uses this term and they throw it around all the time, right? And I'm the kind of person, like, I'm like, if somebody comes on my show, I'm gonna be polite. We don't have to agree on everything. You guys seem like very nice people. If we don't agree on everything, that's completely okay. I'm not gonna go and say anything except for Chris. Well, Chris is an Eagles fan. He's got mental illness. We're trying to get it treated. He doesn't want to get help.
Hey, there's no helping him with that. He got dropped on his head when he was young, and and he looked out the window and saw an eagle, and he was like,
yeah, there you go. That's as good an excuse as any.
Try to not let him fall.
So how people, what they do though, they'll say the Nephilim, like that term is thrown around so much. Just like you said, the cloaking. Like I've used that term too. I just whatever. I don't know what it is. I recently had an encounter at this place called Venture Point. We have some property out in this place called Lago Vista near Lake Travis, and we went out there, and it's what I don't know what I saw. It was a glimmer man that they call. I don't know what we've called it different things when people have talked about it. And one of my close friends had one crawl up in a deer stand with him. It's a really weird thing. I don't know what these things are, but I had something happen to me, right? And I'd gotten out to take a leak and something came running up. And I'm going to say this. I honestly think it could have been a squatch or something that was just trying to see what I was doing, but it didn't bother me. And I have to admit that it did turn around and walked away, and there was no problem. Right. It did scare the hell out of the stags that were there, though. They were just like, they were darting through the woods. Yeah. But this is what I got to say. People they'll talk about the Nephilim, but what they don't understand, if you read the book of Jubilees, and it's not canon, right? It was taken out of the Bible. There's a book of Enoch was too.
Yeah.
And they kind of back each other up. And one of the things, the Book of Jubilees, I believe it's still in the Ethiopian Bible, but they talk about different species. The Nephilim. There's the Nephilim, there's the Eliud, there's the Raphaim, and then there is the Anakim. All right, so those are all different species, and they kind of overlap, and they're different generations, and they're different bloodlines that kind of interbred, right? So the Eliud really interests me as the culprit of what Bigfoot and possibly Dogman could be, because you have these species of angel called the Watchers that came down, and they were supposed to be paying attention to the earth, because after the rebellion, which was Lucifer and his angels, then 200 were commissioned by God to be here, and then they decided, hey, we like these women and we're lonely. And so according to the Book of Enoch, they decided that they were going to come in into the women, and they did whatever. Well, people don't understand that, well, these were giants. Yes. But the thing is, people were bigger back then too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had, they were 20, 30 feet tall people. And Adam was a giant when he was created. He was tall. I mean, if you look at the Bulgarian Roswell.
Conditions prior to the flood were so much different, higher oxygen levels, more compression, less radiation coming in through the canopies.
Longer lifespans.
Everything prior to the flood was greatly different. So I kind of seeing where you're going with the question on the Nephilim, and I fell on that bandwagon for about a year, maybe a year, and the reason being, when this all first kicked off for me, I was like a sponge. I'm trying to soak up as much information as I can. And, one of the things that, I came across was Melba Ketchum and her press release with the genome project. And, the mitochondrial DNA is 100% human. Nuclear DNA was origin unknown. And I think is the main culprit why so many people dove into the Nephilim trap. And and Scott Carpenter, and I never met him. I talked to him for about 10 seconds once, and he was just absolutely dead set that they were Nephilim. The problem with that is, for me, is the amount of love that I've been shown by them, that this amount of love, this type of love, can only come from the Creator. Now, in my beliefs, with Scripture, even my beliefs that tie into extra biblical text, like the first book of Enoch, and understanding the actual history of the book of Enoch, not counting Enoch 2 and 3 into this equation, because those were brought into place so much longer. But
later.
Yeah. But, so the first book of Enoch goes back to what they call the silent period, which is 400 BC to the time of Christ. And the Jewish tradition, the Hebrewic tradition of, what the history was prior to the flood and the fall, and the fallen angels, which are talked about in Genesis 6, just real briefly. And, and the book of Jude talks about the book of Enoch as well, meaning the first book of Enoch. So that, this is giving a history of what was going on in the realm of the earth prior to the flood, and a little bit afterwards, and and some prophetic stuff tied into it as well. And I take a lot of credence with the first book, only because I understand the in the biblical timeline of things, Adam, first man, walked with God, lived 930 something years. Adam personally talked to Methuselah, told him what happened. Methuselah lived long enough to physically hand down the information that he got from Noah to Shem, one of the sons of Noah, who lived so long after the flood that realistically he could have handed down what Methuselah told him, what Adam told him, and he could have personally told that to Abraham and Isaac. So a lot of people think there's this huge gap in the story, but the generational tie to it is actually really small. So I put a lot of credence into the Book of Enoch. But as far as the Nephilim, being of fallen angel, I just don't see it. I know a lot of Christians and a lot of people that I believe in God and like to jump on that because it makes sense.
They're just trying to tie the story together.
Yeah, but once
there's no proof of
that's the similarities are similar, but the differences is what makes the difference. There was, I'm not going to get into it, but there was a real rough time in my life, PTSD kicking in, and I was going to do the thing that YouTube doesn't like done up there on the mountain, and they stopped me. Now, if these were semi-demonic from fallen angels, and here's a good Christian man, and just at PTSD's kicked in, and just at his wit's end, and just ready to see what was next in the grand scheme of things, and they stopped me. They physically stopped me. I cannot believe that something that is of the devil, of demonic, of the dark side,
anything not of God,
anything not of God would have done that. I just don't see it.
And that's your experience. And that's Chris, Chris Kramer, and he's been on the show a few times, and he came for different reasons. He's come on different times. But he came on and he had an experience where one healed him.
Yeah.
He was very adamant that he was healed by that. And the thing is, I would say 90% of the reports that we get, they either are neutral or they're aggressive. Now, you get reports, and I've told these on the Patreon, where people get attacked by people throwing things and things like that, and it freaks people out. They get, freaked out, and it would make me uncomfortable. Me personally, I would not go around these things. I'm not talking about you guys. What you guys do, what you do. Me personally, I would not be around them because I don't really see, at best, they would be a type of predator. Because they're predators, and then at worst they could be demonic, so that's my opinion. Okay, so I don't know what you guys have what you're telling me. I'll take it at face value. I mean, you guys have a different experience with that. I just know that the Eliud would be the offspring of the Nephilim, and that there are different offshoots, so they could go down the line, and they could have some sort of human DNA and angelic that we can't really.
Let me throw another direction at you, and it's kind of the direction I'm leaning. I'm not dead set. I'm not dogmatic about it, but it's the angle that I lean. And if you get into Genesis and start in when was it, Genesis 23-24, about Abraham, Isaac, Esau, and Jacob, and take a look at that. I had to reread it multiple times because I had this thing pop in my head one day that start looking somewhere else, and so Reader Digest version, Isaac. Back up. Abraham, he couldn't have kids. Him and Sarah, they were in their late 90s, and all of a sudden Sarah gets pregnant. That's divine intervention there. Everybody knows the story of that. Isaac and his wife, for some reason, they can't have kids. And so Isaac prays to God, pleads with God. And so God grants him, and his wife gets pregnant, and she's having all this terrible trouble in her pregnancy, and she's pleading with God, why is my pregnancy like this? What's going on? And God says, you have two peoples in you. Esau is born. The name Esau means hairy in Hebrew. It's hairy. But the scripture in Genesis tells us that he was red and hairy when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
Esau was a man of the fields. Jacob was a man of the tents. Jacob and Jacob's mom decided to steal all the rights away from Esau. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing Reader Digest version of this. Okay, you're going to take Esau's birthright because, we don't like him. I mean, mom didn't even like him. Mom loved Jacob, but she hated Esau. Only dad loved him. And so mom had to put a sheepskin on her son's arm to fool dad, because dad was blind and he was dying. How hairy do you have to be to have a sheepskin on your arm to fool a blind man? So I took a deeper look, a deeper dive into this story about Esau, and Esau ended up, and it's Genesis 26 ends really weird. It just this abrupt end, that Esau's first two wives, and then later on Esau gets married 3 more times, and and they kind of trace that genealogy. But there is absolutely zero mention of his first wife or his second wife after the chapter 26. And, it's just hypothetical. It's speculation, but there's a possibility there. And so, it's just another thought, just another idea. Does that mean that that's what it is? No. To me, that makes a lot of sense.
We'll never know.
Well, I know this in Deuteronomy 3 through 11. It talks about Og, the king of Bashan. He remained.
Og of Bashan.
Yeah, and of course he was spared by God, and that the hot waters of the flood didn't burn him. That's weird. That's a weird passage too. And then he's on the outside of the ark, and he basically hangs on, and he becomes a servant to Noah's family. And then later he serves Abraham. But there's a lot of weird stuff in the Bible, and there's a lot of weird. You could speculate all day of what it is. When you look at the Jewish oral tradition, then it becomes the Tanakh. And if you read that, it describes Yahweh as a dragon. It literally does. It says that David beheld God, that he was a dragon. It's incredible how it describes him. It's just a strange thing. So then you start wondering, how come in the New Testament, how come in the Bible, a lot of times the dragon is the bad guy, but yet they describe Yahweh as a dragon? Now, was this some priest's imagination and they were just putting it in there? Because that's not in the Bible. That's in the Jewish oral tradition that became the book of Tanakh. So when you start to read these things, and I've read all of this, you start to go down this rabbit hole. And I'm not going to get into some of the other stuff I've read that just really doesn't jive with Christianity at all. I mean, it's just, it becomes, whatever. For us as Christians, the most important thing is Jesus's lineage, showing that it was pure, that he became, who he was. And of course, in the Torah and then in the Tanakh and all these other books that were of the Jewish faith, they tend to push away the books like Daniel and the prophecy and the books that talk about, like Amos, these books that criticize them or that give Jesus validity because they don't believe in Christ. So that is the truth. I mean, so then you get into this whole, we should get to sticky stuff there, and then there is some copy and pasting going into the Quran, which they can say that it's not, but it is. And then but that's religion. You get into this whole religious thing and the dogma of it. But that all aside, what I'm talking about are some of these books that are not canon anymore, because they say, well, this would confuse people, right? But I think a lot of it had to do with control. Let's put the books that tell us, that we have the control, And that was, that was the important thing, was that they said that, rebellion is just witchcraft. Don't rebel. But without a rebellion, we would never have had the United States. So George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were committing treasonous witchcraft by rebelling, because that's what that's what they're telling you. So the books get kind of
like the book of Jasher is anti-government.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah, exactly. The Code of Deuteronomy, and it was used for a long time to control the masses and things like that. It's pretty obvious that some of this is, and you can speculate all day. I just know that it was always fascinating to me, the Book of Jubilees, when they talk about this, and Enoch, because the Eliud, really, because that was the generations of the Nephilim, and they just went down further and further and further. But if these watchers, if you were to take them and compare them side by side to the Anunnaki of the Sumerian tradition, they line up. They really do. And then you start to think, what if, so you get the story of Tiamat in the Sumerian tradition, just so people to clarify, when people say Mesopotamian, Babylonian, specifically Mesopotamia is that entire region, which encompasses part of most of the Levant. I don't think it would be the southeastern corridor, but the rest of it. Then you have Iran and Iraq, which is Persia and Babylon, ancient, and so Mesopotamia would be the entire region. And then you would have Sumeria would be like more specific, the region, right? It's a part of the Mesopotamian region. So let's say Sumeria, which would be part of Iran and most of Iraq, right? So that region right there, which was Babylon. When Babylon became to power, they ruled that entire region. And the point is that was kind of the birthplace of some of these traditions, like Tiamat. Now, who is Tiamat? Tiamat was a dragon, once again, but it was a female, right? But it's also known as a celestial body. And the weird thing is there are different theories about this, that Tiamat travels around the galaxy and wages war. It sounds like a spacecraft sometimes when you hear it being talked about in that way. But also the thing that Tiamat did was create several species of beings to wage war on her son Marduk, right? Because Marduk killed his dad, her husband. He murdered him. And so Marduk became the chief god, the pantheon of the Babylonians. And this is important because a lot of the Israelites were taken into captivity. And they ended up inheriting them from the Assyrians. And so it was Assyria, Babylon, Persia, whatever. So eventually they were released in the 600 BC, about that. Cyrus the Great, he released them or kicked them out, depending on who you talk to. They go back with no written tradition until that point, and then they begin to scribe things and say, but then a lot of it seems like it was copied and pasted from the Persians, who copy and pasted it from the Babylonians from the Sumerians, right? It goes back and back. Tiamat did something, right? Tiamat created several species. One of them was the bull man, the scorpion man, and one of them was the hairy man. Now you think about that, you stop and you go, well, it's Bigfoot, right? It automatically just jumps out at you when you read this, and you're like, wait, whoa, what am I reading here? Bigfoot is often described by the tribes of the Native Americans as the hairy man, right? He's the wild man, the hairy beast, or whatever. There was a whole species that was created by Tiamat. Now, what if, and I'm just saying, I think this is just spitballing here. I'm not saying any absolutes. I don't think any of us are dealing in absolutes.
We can't. We can't.
No, you can't. Not at all. But speculation and postulating on theories, we can, right? So what if?
And that's what we all do.
Yeah. So I have a fun theory. This is fun, right? I'm just going to say this, but what if Tiamat is that spacecraft, right? Didn't complete the mission, was defeated, still travels around, and that's where the hairy man was created. Was in a spacecraft, and then something tells you guys, hey, look up. Who knows? I mean, what if that is the origin of the Nephilim?
All night long after that happened, we kept laughing. They hadn't seen the movie, and I'd only seen about 10 minutes of it because it was just I couldn't do it. But
what movie?
Don't look up.
Don't look up.
Don't look up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't look up. You don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah, it was our joke that night. back to the craft. It's anything and everything. Don't know.
Yeah.
I got a side thought here. If you wanna veer off on this thought, because people ask, are UFOs tied to Bigfoot? Some say no, some say yes. Other people that have done interviews, I put everything in a bucket, and some say that they were told that, by a Bigfoot that from the space they came down and took all their women and children. So I'm on the lines of thinking, if they've taken women, it would be for breeding, getting more that they would train to do whatever they want to do. So you could have, technically, in my opinion, two Bigfoots where one is space trained and they're not affiliated with the ones home here on Earth or part-time Earth. That could be a possibility. So that's why some say they don't want nothing to do with spacecraft. They're afraid of them. They go silent when they're around. So that's the way I look at it, is because, we're not the only ones experiencing events, and we're not the only ones getting messages. They're tied together somehow. And so I kind of think that there's some maybe attached to spacecraft, but they're not the ones like we deal with that are, their home is here. And they have local, the local clans, local areas we go. They're not this, they want nothing to do with those. Going back to when the earlier topic of when they took away the Enoch and stuff like that, I think the way I understand it, there was scripture put in that would validate their beliefs. Like, let's say purgatory. You can pray somebody out of purgatory or stuff like that, and it goes deeper. But I think that stuff was added to, as you said earlier, control. This says this, so therefore you will listen to us. You will pay us, your tidings or whatever. I believe that too. And it's that you just go in, and Jesus came down in the New Testament. The New Testament is what we should be going by. Don't disregard the Old Testament, but the New Testament, he came down for a reason, and that should override everything. If what you're doing doesn't match it, you should reconsider, my opinion.
I agree 100%.
And I can't help but say this. If you notice, those two boys are both dressed in green.
Okay.
Just saying.
Whatever, navy blue.
Rob, you got a couple of these shirts coming. These came to me yesterday. This is this year's AZ4 shirt.
Okay. As I said before, come out and camp with us. You'll be safe. You don't have to be the fastest.
I have siblings in the Air Force, or former Air Force and Army. And my cousins are Marines and Navy. I have everybody, and also every one of my family is musically inclined, but me. I was the pugilist. I was not everybody can play guitar, they can play trumpet, my sisters can play piano, everybody can sing. Not me. I have no musical ability at all. I'll break an instrument if I try to play it. It's like horrible. So I was the only one
Army band then.
Yeah, I mean, and my best friend's brother was in the Army band. He's always talking. He played trumpet, and he still goes to funerals and plays, for soldiers.
Honor guard.
Yeah, honor. Yeah.
I'm so glad you didn't say tuba, because
that would have been Navy.
At the end of the ground war and Desert Storm, and we're back in Saudi Arabia and built this huge recreation area for the 1st Armored Division, and they had the 1st Armored Division band out there, and me and my guys are watching this guy playing the tuba, and we're like, can you imagine that conversation? Grandpa, what'd you do in the war? But I mean, it was just a joke, but it takes every cog in the wheel to make the machine go round, and everybody's got a purpose. And and the guys in the band, they typically have a regular job plus the band, but
Yeah, I used to daydream about being able to. My brother is a great guitar player, and my nephew Anthony was just saying he's guitar player. My other nephew, Zane, could play guitar. And Anthony played trumpet. His mother played piano. So did my sister. She played piano. Beautiful. My mother could sing. She had a very angelic voice. My dad could play guitar. I'm the only one. I was like, why do I not have any artistic ability? Is when it comes to musical talent, I don't. My grandfather was a fighter. I was a fighter, and I coached MMA for 16 years, and I did it myself too. I was 18-0 as a fighter, and I won a lot of boxing matches. But I decided years ago that I wanted to keep my brain cells because you're going to get hit, and then you get hit enough. Yeah, you get hit enough. You can't think clearly. You can't. So I had a boxing coach, Matt Turner, no relation. He was black, but he was my boxing coach years ago. And he always told me, he says, "You're a smart kid. Why are you out here getting your head beat in? You don't want your face to look like Burger King over here. What are you doing?" And he discouraged me. He died of cancer years ago. But I actually thankful that I stopped and just went into the coaching aspect of it and training, because if you keep going, eventually you're going to sustain damage. And I was pretty good defensive fighter, but that was my thing. I was a pugilist, and I had really quick hands. I'm a big guy. And so I trained a lot of guys on how to throw hands and grapple, but no musical ability at all. And, but everybody in my family, everybody military, I was the black sheep, I did all these other things, but, and now I do this. And I get to meet guys like you. This is awesome. You guys are great. I really enjoyed having you here.
Well, we appreciate you having us on. Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys got to come back. Like I said, for me, I've always said this on the show, and I'm not going to pretend like I don't, but I am going to take into consideration what you guys said, because you're credible. But for the most part, yeah, I have heard a lot of negativity toward Bigfoot and being, on the demonic side. But here's something I got to say. I got to tell you guys this, and I want your guys' opinions. It's very important to me. I did a lot of research here in Texas. So some of my ancestors, and I say my ancestors like it was this is my great uncles. They loved to razz and tease. But one thing that they would get serious about was when they would talk about these things, they called them wood boogers.
Mm-hmm. Same thing.
And they would tell me, they said, and Uncle SD, he always had a cigar. He said, "Hey, let me tell you about them wood boogers down there, about holler down there." And he'd tell me, and it would scare the crap out of me. "You and your cousin Donnie, y'all going down there, they'll eat you." And I'm like 6 years old. Like, what? If you go down and you play with that bull, you're messing with him, he'll throw you over that electric fence. He might hurt you. But them wood boogers, they'll eat you. They'll eat you. And I'm like, he had this rooster named Nick. He was mean as hell. He was a gamecock, and he'd spur you. He'd hurt you. He had a bull out there. He was mean as hell. And so, we would run around messing with the animals and stuff, but we were terrified of the holler because he always said that there were these wood boogers down there. There was this family known as the McCulloughs, and they were the first that I could find in this area, Central Texas, who described these Bigfoot creatures, but they were not as big as these. Like they damn sure weren't like the Northwestern, Olympic forest Bigfoot that you hear about, right? They were probably about 6.5, 7 feet tall at most, but they were mean, and their faces were gray, and their hair was weird. It was kind of wiry looking, and the way they described them, and they were nasty. They would dig up bodies and eat them. And so it was a weird thing. And I was when you talk to some of these old timers, and I went around all over Central Texas trying to locate people who were still alive that could talk about this. And it was something that happened at the turn of the century, 1900, there was like this diphtheria, was it or cholera? So there was this thing that happened, and then a bunch of people died from the flu. Well, they would have to bury their bodies in certain spots because these Bigfoot type creatures would dig them up. And then gradually the reports got less and less and less until now at the current rate, is maybe once every few years you'll hear about one of these. And that's how they describe them. What's interesting though is I've had some of the old timers tell me that they put ash on their faces. And I asked this question, I said, where are they getting the fire to make the ash? Are they capable of making fire? And I had one old timer tell me yes. So to me, these are not really ape-like. They're more like a throwback of a hominid, not a hominid, but like a human type throwback. the brow, everything just kind of describes something in between like Neanderthal and ape, something a little more primitive than a Neanderthal, and some sort of, remnant population of something. But it is interesting. It's creepy, but that's kind of these Bigfoot here in Texas in this area. They're very aggressive, and everybody who's seen them, they'll tell you they'll attack you. They'll attack your livestock. They will kill your pets. They will do things to you. But then when you go to certain areas, like you guys go to the Mogollon Rim area, I've interviewed multiple people from Arizona over the years. I mean, not like a ton, but a handful. And they're not really saying, hey, we're being attacked, things like that. Maybe a stick or rock, Flagstaff near the into the corridor going into the Grand Canyon. I've heard a few people say that they see them attack elk. Yeah, and things like that. But Flagstaff's weird anyway. But they're not. I'm not really getting the same reports as like these things are just trying to kill us and eat us. But then you go into Louisiana, and you talk to some of the Creole population or the Cajuns, and they're like, "Hey, them Haints out there, and they'll kill you and they'll eat you. And they'll tear off your privates." And you're like, "Good God!" Like it sounds completely different and removed from what you guys are seeing. Like, and then it seems like the further you go west, they become less aggressive. I don't know if that's the case, but I've had some of my colleagues tell me this. Is that your guys' experience? What do you?
Well, I kind of, I think there's a lot of the old folklore. I mean, my dad was born in St. Louis, Missouri. His great grandmother, rumored in the family, that we joke around that she was a witch, but she's just a natural healer. She used, natural medicines, and that Frank and Jesse used to visit quite often. And, and that's just a story in the family. And I don't know if there's any validity to it, but I can see on one side of the family that comes out of that neck of the woods that there's a lot of superstitious story involved in a lot of stuff. And I'm not discrediting anybody with their experiences, because my very first experience that I have memory of, if that would have been my only experience, I'd be on the same page, that they're mean and they're evil and they're going to kill you. They tried to kill us. We were going to be eaten alive out there. And if that's all I ever knew about them, and that was the story that I was going to continue on with, pass that down to my kids and pass that down to, and they pass that down, generational pass downs, and it just keeps embellishing. Earlier I said my personal belief, the rest of the team doesn't believe this, but, Chris is like, you're nuts. But because of the realm of experiences that I've had, I firmly believe a lot of it has to do with just misinterpreting exactly what's going on. And since I first started doing this, I've thrown the Pepsi challenge out there. I don't have the money to do it, but somebody wants to fly me out to Texas for a week, I'll go out there.
Arkansas, Missouri,
Louisiana. I'll go anywhere. I have absolutely zero fear of it.
But what if they're all different types, though? I mean, and some of them really are just.
But that's my angle.
Yeah, but the question also is, but what if they're not? And it's just misinterpretation. I could be opening myself up for a big can of whoop ass and get myself into a lot of trouble, and then I go, live through it, because nothing seems to kill me anymore.
You guys could go out as Falk.
I think it's a little of both. I mean, they have different attitudes in different clans and in different areas, and we have different folklore and fears throughout those same areas. That I don't know of anybody that ever got their kid eaten from a Sasquatch, but the stories are there, so they're passed down. The boogeyman.
What about, because like you get the missing 411 cases, and a lot of people attribute that to the Bigfoot.
A lot of people do, but he doesn't generally come out and say that this is attributed to.
No, it's kind of alluded to, I guess, at best.
It is. Kevin, tell them about when you kept asking if they did that.
Oh, okay. So, 2019, 2020, something like that. One of the locals in the Payson area, he's a tracker, older gentleman though, he's in his 70s, went out on a hiking trip, and he never showed up where he was supposed to at the right time. And all of a sudden, everybody in the Bigfoot community in the Arizona and surrounding areas was, missing 911, missing, the Bigfoot did it. And I got the communication. We don't do that. Now, does that mean we and then all of them, or does that mean we and the family group I was communicating?
The clan that
Right. And then it turns out he showed up. He made a left-hand turn instead of a right-hand turn and went, several miles out of way, and all was fine and dandy. And the case like this little boy several years ago who got lost in the woods and in the middle of winter, and the bear kept him alive. Then there's the stories of the missing kids and the clothes folded up neatly. Well, I can tell you one thing about the Bigfoot. They don't do anything neat. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, but I don't see that they're going to fold up somebody, some little kid's clothes.
Conjecture. It's a lot of conjecture,
and that's what it is. And I think a lot of times, if you're intellectually honest with yourself about it, yes, people go missing. Yes, it's under strange circumstances. One of my best friends, falls in that category. But to tie it to one thing or another, it's in my opinion, is being wishful or hopeful. Because we've got to fill in the blanks, and what is the easiest way to fill in the blank? Blame it on something else. So we don't have an answer for why these people went missing. Alien abduction? Did they fall down a hole? Did the ant people from underground grab?
They get ate by a bear. Who knows?
Or the bear people.
Yeah,
there are people that claim that they're bear people. I mean, wolf people. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on out there. One of the things too.
But just being intellectually honest, the bottom line is we don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we do know they're not the only thing that goes bump in the night.
No, that's 100%.
Not at all.
Who's to say one area is different than another? Like one of the times I was out camping with Kevin, actually we were at this other site. We decided to go back to Hilltop for a night or two. And we were sitting out and Kevin got not safe, go in. I had my RV was there, so we went inside the camper. And after a while of, getting bored, Navy tales and Army tales, let's go back outside and look at the stars. And we went back out again. And I knew something big was in front of my RV. And he was not happy we were outside. And Kevin got the same thing. And we were told to go back in. I think he was there to protect Kevin's butt, not mine. But something was transiting through. What it was, don't know. But we were told not safe. Go in the camper. And
like a camper would do anything, but
yeah, I've gotten so many reports of things. The campers, they're not going to protect you. In fact, one of them threw a rock through one of them.
Some opportunity. That's all it does.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was saying though, that there was a big boy there. I don't know who it was. All I know is this was a big boy, and he was, authority. He was definitely had authority, but he was not. I felt he was not happy he was there. He was having to babysit us, protect us. Did you get the same thing, Kevin? I mean, that's
it kind of felt that way, It's and that's not the only time that happened at that location with my grandson after a family camp out, and we're going to spend a couple extra nights out, and so the first night we're in the tent, and second night we were just going to sleep on the cots outside, and I got this leave now, danger. Yeah, like what? And then all of a sudden everything changed. Everything went to like grayscale. It was enough that it put me in what I refer to as combat mode. I'm ready to do great violence against something. And I told my grandson, pack stuff up, throw it in the truck while I stood guard. And then I did the same thing. We jumped in the truck. We hauled ass out of there. 9 miles down the road, everything went back to normal. What was there? I don't know. But I was warned. I was told to leave, that it was dangerous. Yeah, and that's only happened like, well, the time with Rob and then this time with my grandson. I had another time I was warned about coyotes and had 3 packs of dogs come in on me. I had
That's a lot.
I had another one where I was told to leave, that that wasn't safe, and went home, and I was at 7,700 foot and went back down to where I lived down in the Phoenix area at the time, 1,400 feet, and my blood pressure shot up to like 210 over 165 or something like that. What would have happened at 7,700 feet? I don't know, but somehow they knew it was going to happen. And
how do they know that?
Yeah, it was 250 something mile round trip for me. I got up there, went to the gift shop, and they told me to leave. I didn't even unpack my truck yet. So yeah, there are things out there. And I think a lot of times everybody equates it to, or a lot of it to Bigfoot, a lot of it to the, to the dogmen. Are there dogmen up there? I have no idea. I've never seen one. I've never, seen anything that would lead me to believe that, other than a couple of incidents, one with Rob and the one with my grandson, where, the atmosphere changed. I mean, you could taste it in the air. It just wasn't right.
They tend to, like, in my experience, and this is just from researching and talking to a ton of people, and we've gone to a lot of areas where there has been activity. But they tend to be, they kind of stay out of each other's area. They stay away for the most part, but they do overlap at times. And I do have a story that I've been sitting on for a while, and it was something I was actually going to throw by Kramer about this, because he believes in the healing aspect of what happened to him. And that's you guys' truths. I mean, I'm not going to impede on that. But this is a weird one. So there was I'm not going to get into the whole, it's too long. It's going to be an episode. But this guy, him and his wife, they went out with another couple, and they went camping. And this was in Oregon. And something was wrong. Something was not correct with the other guy. And they swear up and down that a Bigfoot that they had met before, years before, in that same forest, came to them and warned them about that guy. But that guy was not a good guy, and it turned out he was a really bad guy. And so that's what they say. They swear up and down. I think her name is Valerie. Dale and not Dale. His name is, it starts with a D. Anyway, her name is Val. I know that. And I just remember I talked to her, and her husband is going to give me the rest of it. But I thought about throwing that by Kramer and thinking, because I don't know that this was, like you said, it could be a coincidence. I don't know. But he had some health problems, and then it healed. But they were warned about this guy. And it turned out that this thing was correct. And it gets really spooky. It's kind of weird, but I just was looking at that the other day, and then Kramer had messaged me something. He's always messaging me something, and then he's obsessed with the Eagles. So he says something to me, and he's we're going to see what happens. Okay. I'm a struggling Cowboys fan. I'm a Bucks fan, and I don't like the Eagles at all. So we're going to see what happens, Kramer. We're going to see that this year. We'll see. I'm not going to be like the Cowboys fans, like, this is our year after we win one game. Okay. I'm just saying, I think we're in a level playing.
I'll tell you who my favorite team is. The one that wins. I don't support losers. So whoever wins, that's my team. That's
my team is the one that wins bigly. I don't go for losers. If you're on that loser team, I don't go. I only go for the winners.
And he refuses to watch the Army-Navy game, but that's okay.
Well, you never know. You never know.
I'll tell you what. You know, you talk about some of the weird stuff that happens. I can tell you my side of the story, but you need to talk to Kramer about an incident that happened over at Crazy Town. It was just him and I. Had an individual walk out of the tree line from behind me, right up to me, and so Chris was sitting pretty much almost straight across from me, but a little bit to my right as we sit around this fire pit. You know, no fire. But, you know, Chris, you know, my side of the story was as I was sitting there and I said, Chris, is there somebody standing behind me? He goes, yeah, I just watched him walk out of the tree. And he goes, oh my God. But he watched him come out as like a shimmering image. And then all of a sudden there's this large individual over me. I'm only telling you from what Chris said, but what I felt was, you know, getting this charge energy feeling. And Chris said that he saw him place his hands up just over my head and this glow. What it was, I don't know. But do they heal? Yes, they do. They have the ability. Some things, yes. Some things, no. For years, I kept feeling a very large hand pressed against my chest. I got told at one point that you need to stop spending so much time out here, that you need to get things together. And I was thinking apocalyptic, and you know, and I was like, why don't you want me to come in? Blah blah blah. The bottom line is, last year and the year before that, I was just going downhill real bad, and had a total knee replacement done. And then it turns out I ended up with heart problems. It's called sick sinus syndrome, related to my exposures to sarin and cyclosarin nerve gas and Desert Storm. Wow. That's destroying my nervous system. So the plumbing of the heart is pretty damn good, but the electronics not so good. So I ended up with the pacemaker last August, and everything's fine and dandy now. But you know, so you know, I question, you know, when I was getting that big hand on my chest and I could feel this energy, is it something that they were trying to work on? You know, they knew I had a heart problem. They sent me home because they knew my blood pressure was going to shot up. How that happens, I can't answer it. But yeah, the night they healed Chris, that, you know, he probably didn't even tell you about the other thing that happened. He had gone into the tent just a little before I did. And I come in the tent and he goes, did you put this rock in my sleeping bag? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't put no damn rock in your sleeping bag. And, you know, and there's no light on in the tent, just the ambient light from outside and at night. And he's holding his hand out and I see the shape of this rock. And I go, let me see that. I said, that's my rock. And it's a gift that I was given from Indy back in 2017. But it was in the cup holder of my truck. And then it ended up in the sleeping bag. And I didn't get it out of my truck. He didn't get it out of my truck. Nobody else got out of my truck. But it ended up in his sleeping bag, and then he got healed that night. You know?
Real quick, I want to thank Simsky for those wonderful donations. That was very generous. And Rita Burnett, thank you for the donation. Everybody who donated or became a member tonight, like I said, get your name in green. We have a huge members-only library. We have not been behind a paywall for that long, but we have built quite a library for that. Members is on Tuesdays. Patreon, the Bigfoot and the Nature Realities on Monday. Then we have the Lost Encounters on Thursday. But tonight we're with the Arizona 4. So, Kevin, I have to ask you this. You know, you're talking about the healing thing, right? Well, let's change course just for a minute here. They tell you that that you were meant to see that craft. There has to be something behind that.
I agree. What it is,
there has to be something behind that.
Riddles.
A lot of riddles.
Yeah. And it seems like when you get with Bigfoot in particular, you get an answer, you just get another question. I'm sorry, what was that?
If they just come out and sit down with us and have a conversation, we might be able to ask some questions to get some answers. But they're very cryptic.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
No, yeah, you know, and here's another thing. We did an investigation at a ranch near Giddings, Anthony, and you know this guy, his nephews. I didn't even put you on screen. You want to say hi? You want to say hello?
Hey, hang on. Can y'all hear me?
Barely.
We can barely hear you.
You're not as loud as Kevin.
Well, Chris is louder than me.
No,
Yeah, he is.
no, I've sat next to him when he's talking. It doesn't.
Well, we'll let him work on
I'm
his
hearing
microphone or whatever he's got going on. But so I always tease Anthony like we don't want him to be on camera because he looks like he's
It's what?
it looks
What?
like he's about to go blow some people up.
Okay, here we
let's
go.
Be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I believe this is the first time Wayne and
It
I
depends on my
did
facial
this.
hair. Like if I grow this out, I look like a Allahu Akbar. But if I just have a mustache and a soul patch, I look like a cholo. But if I shave the soul patch, I look Indian. So I'm kind of a racial shapeshifter here.
Dude, oh my gosh. No, what's funny is we used to live in this complex next to IBM, and we had a lot of Indian people that lived there, and they would come up and start talking to him, and he's like, "Dude, I'm not Indian, I'm Mexican." Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, they don't know. They don't know you. Just be nice. Right?
I should learn some Hindi and just
it's
go
not
with it.
hard. We're gonna all have to learn it pretty soon. I'm telling you.
They make a lot of money, dude. I
They
need
do.
to make some inroads with them in the Indian community.
You could just
They always have
tell
money.
them that you're from Bengali.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just learn everything I can about it and play pretend.
So, but Anthony's my nephew, and actually, my grandmother was Comanche. So people don't know that. They said that I got the high cheekbones, but I have a beard. They say, well, a lot of Comanches, they didn't grow facial hair; they plucked it. Some of them didn't, but that's typically further south. But the Comanches were very violent and brutal people, and I always get these people like, "Oh, you're Comanche? Like that's so awesome!" And they start doing this kind of patronizing. What is that when they romanticize it? And I'm like, yeah, they would have spit roasted you. They were not nice people. They just were not.
Yeah.
But almost all the natives have different names for Bigfoot. They have these different names. So we interviewed this guy near Giddings, and he was a native. He was I don't really like using the word Apache because the Apache people, they don't like it either because it's actually a Comanche word that means enemy. Mm-hmm. So you're calling, oh, you're enemy. That's not really, But so this guy, he was native. Clearly you could see he was like, mixed native, but he was talking to me about these creatures, and the word that he used, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't Gugwi, because that was like an Oklahoman term, like a Choctaw term or something. But he was talking about it, and it was this in-between creature. But there were people that were neighbors of his. They were Hispanic. And then there was some white people that were behind him, and they all had different names for this thing. But the white guy, he called it a Bigfoot. He just said, well, this is a Bigfoot. Well, when they started describing it, the Hispanic dudes were saying, well, it's like a chupacabra. And I'm like, that's not a chupacabra. But the native dude, no, he was mixed, native and white, but he had a name for it. I forgot what it was. But he passed away like right after we interviewed him, like a few months later. He was an older guy. And his kids, they weren't interested in the traditions or anything like that. They were like, oh, our dad was into all that. Our grandfather was 100% there. He was into that. So they just kind of lose that connection to it. But what this thing was something that looked like it was in between a Bigfoot and a werewolf. Like it had the body shape, everything of the Bigfoot. The thing that I saw, the dog man, it had this backward bent legs, right? With this wolf-like head. It did not look like a Bigfoot, like people describe a Bigfoot. 90% of the descriptions. But this thing that they were seeing on these 3 ranches, it was distinctly kind of ape-like with the conical head, but then it had a little bit of a muzzle, and it had the legs that were straight, like up and down, and it looked humanoid, like a man, right? But it looked kind of dogmanish. So that's this third option that people describe, and they call it the Gugwi. And like I said, I think it's a Chickasaw or Choctaw term. And I believe that there was a story about a guy named LaFleur who tried to fight these things, and they killed him. But they were Gugwi. That's what they call them. But then I traced it from there. Some of the people who I had talked to from Oklahoma said, no, it came from further north. So it goes all the way back to supposedly an Algonquin term. But then it kind of gets lost in translation, and then it just goes from Michigan all the way across. I don't know. but it is a weird thing. It is like a mixture of these creatures. And so you have this other subset. Could it be that these things bred? I don't believe that, but I do believe that there could be genetic manipulation from some sort of alien technology or something that could have way back. I'm not talking about now, because if it's being modified and genetically messed with now, it's definitely our governments probably know about it, or there's a shadow aspect to it. But possible genetic manipulation going way back, like ancient alien way back. That's just my opinion
on this.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rob.
with me on that one.
Okay, you talk about it's not fully Bigfoot, not fully Dogman, whatever. If Satan can pose as an angel of light,
Mhm.
his demons theoretically can pose as a shadow or a spirit of your Uncle Tom or whoever knows. Okay, who's to say that that wasn't a demonic being, and it was just that was the form that it took. It's just the thought that I think. I don't think there's any interbreeding between them, because I think they have no love for each other at all.
No, me neither.
Could
Rob, what you're talking about is familiar spirits, but yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, whatever, test all spirits or whatever, test the spirits. But it is it's just a, don't go thinking that what you see is what you're actually, because maybe somebody comes out that says this Bigfoot chased me and he was going to eat me, but I outrun him. No, you are not outrunning them. When somebody's driving,
that's not going to happen. That's it's like,
I don't know how many times
Bigfoot was scared of me, man. He knew I had some mad skills, dude. I mean,
that's where you throw the old TV rock against the screen, but it's maybe showing my age. But no, you don't. You're not outrunning them. But
no,
I have a different view on some of these things. How people say, that might not have been what you think you saw. And could I be wrong? Oh, sure. Could have been some genetic thing in there. Oh, sure. I don't know, but that's just something to think of, is that you might be seeing an imposter and, posing as a Bigfoot, whatever. I mean, take, for example, like go to an area that has been known that they don't like people, and the Bigfoot don't, get along with the hunters coming in. But there's rumors, they say that a Bigfoot saves a hunter for whatever it might be. A cougar was sneaking up on him, he breaks his neck. What a Bigfoot clan or community or area don't want a bunch of humans coming around with search and rescue and helicopters flooding an area. They don't want that. So they would rather save somebody that they don't like versus having to leave an area or go into exile. So that's another thought too of why some are saved, whatever. There's people that go missing, but as Kevin said, I don't think they do that. And they don't do it because maybe they're following God's word, like the Aiden Ginn told him that night we saw the UFO, it's, honor God. But it's, I don't think they generally would do that, and they're smart enough to know if they do, we're going to come in like ants, and we're going to go all over the area, and we're going to have dogs, and we're going to have helicopters, and we're going to, they don't want that. My opinion. That's my 2 cents.
I think that's correct, Rob, in a lot of ways, because I think that they're cognizant of the consequences. And if somebody was talking about how the Native Americans had fought them, they know that things can happen to them. There's more of us than there are of them. But I have another wrinkle to this. And this is something, when I was down in Mexico, my stepdad was from Monterrey, and he had a ranch down there. And my mother's Hispanic and Native, and my dad's white. But so I spent time down in Mexico, and I remember listening to some of these crazy stories that these vaqueros would talk about. And one of the things that they were talking about, there was a big hole in the earth, and that there were things that would come up out of there, like monstros, cucuys. And it intrigued me because, I had grown up. This was prior to what I saw, but I had grown up with the stories of these, these hombre lobos, as they say in Spanish. And I always thought, this is mentiras way. I don't believe this. This is stories to scare kids. Because everybody, if you're Hispanic, everybody's abuelita has a cucuy in the closet. There's a fantasma in the hallway, and El Chupacabras outside, and Lechuza's up in the trees. They cover all the bases. And don't go to the water because La Llorona will get you. So you're basically just scared. You're not supposed to do anything, but you're supposed to go to the mission and light candles and beg God to not let animals kill you and whatever. They scare the crap out of you as a kid, right? And the Mexican culture, they love to scare the crap out of you. And they use this as a way to keep you in line. They'll tell you, well, don't go outside. Don't go out there. The hombre lobo is going to get you. And I'm like, mentiras. Well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, right? And then when I was 15, I actually saw this. But when I remember going to San Juan, to the Rio Grande Valley, I really enjoyed it down there, but I hated the long drive. So my tia Jofa would always regale me with tales of the manos peludos, the hairy hand, and all these different stories. And she would say, yeah, and so had this happen and this happened. So when I encountered this creature, she sat me down and she told me that the reason that I saw the dog man was because I had stopped being a Catholic and had become a Baptist. And she said, mijo, you don't know go to CCD? That's why that creature come to you. He said, Diablo. And I'm like, God, you're going to tell me this? She said, you don't go to the church, to Guadalupe? You don't go to mass? Now you'll become a Baptist? No, mijas, why? You want to go to hell? And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go to hell. My mother converted to Baptist, and it was like the worst sin ever. So I figured out years ago that there is a lot of this storytelling and things that are retold, and it's like the telephone game becomes something else. But when I was 15, I saw something that looked like this. And then every story I had ever heard instantly became real. And I know that what I saw was real and it was physical. At least it could manipulate and do physical things. It was terrifying. Now, I never saw it again, thank God. Some people see these things over and over again throughout their life. But the Bigfoot stories, some of the stories I was getting from people, some of my best friends, my friend Brian, he saw one of these near Marble Falls, and it terrified the crap out of him. And his story was similar to mine. I don't think the Bigfoot was trying to hurt him or kill him, because I always told Brian, I said, if it wanted to kill you, it would have. If the dog man wanted to kill me, I think it would have. I think God spared me. I really do. Because the feeling I get from dog man is not the same. Bigfoot's kind of 50-50 neutral, maybe, or whatever people live to tell about it. But the dog man seems to give off this evil vibe more so. And I think this thing is not a good thing. I think it's a nasty, evil thing. But I have gotten stories from people now. I know there are Bigfoot that have red eyes, and some of the natives have told me this is straight up. They've told me, they've even come on the show and said this, like, if the eyes are yellow or they're just white, you're okay. But if they're red, you're in trouble. That there are different types of these creatures. And I know that every country on earth has a Bigfoot type of being. And what you were saying, Rob, about how a hunter gets saved from there was actually a story out of, was it Osceola, Florida, in that area, where a guy was hunting, and that was the nearest, township, whatever. But he was hunting. I read it, and maybe it was Fate magazine or something, but I did read this, and I remember some guy getting attacked by a cougar, or a panther, as they call them in Florida. But this Bigfoot saved him. Literally chased it away. It didn't help him, but it chased it away and just kind of went on its business. So and I don't think they're all bad. I personally just don't want to deal with any of these creatures face to face. I don't go out into the woods to look for them. I will go on location and show people this is where so-and-so claims that this happened. This is where it happened, and we'll video it and stuff like that. But I don't want to hang around there and try to get their attention. Hey, I'm here. Let's make noise. I'm not going to just that's not my thing, because I do believe that they can come to you. And not only that, but it just seems like there's a spiritual thing there that seems to happen too. People will go home and then they'll have weird stuff happen, Now, that could be argued that they're inviting spirits just in general by going around saying, come here and blah, blah, blah. So maybe something else shows up. But some people have claimed to have seen Bigfoot, dogman type creatures around their property after going to a hot spot.
I would be the opposite of you. Not that I was always, but I am now. Because you go out like ghost hunting and stuff.
I'm not really a ghost hunter, but
Well,
I'll go to
haunted
locations.
houses. Yeah, haunted
I'll go
houses.
sometimes.
Okay. I'm in a firm belief now that that is just, they're not human spirits there. The demon, whatever you want to call it, may know that family, know that person intimately, so they can pop secrets out that you wouldn't think that they would know, and all that is grandma, Maggie or whatever. But
they pretend, like they're spiritual.
they pretend, and that's what I think on that. It's just that's my belief. Going out to where we go, come on out, because I don't think they're not demonic, and the two Army guys over there can vouch. I have fought this, the feeling of, are they good, are they bad, whatever. The first time that I went out, I met Kevin, and then they invited me to go out with them. And the first night that I went out, because this is an area that I was going to at the time, 24, 25 years. I saw the shimmering images in front of me. And once I realized what it was like, holy, this is real. And when I came back down to the valley, I found me a church. It was like, I needed to get some things answered, and I'm still not fully answered, whatever, but I just know, like Kevin's experience of, they stopped him. It was just, it's been, their answers a lot of times is when you ask them a question, they'll say pray or prayer. So I'm on the opposite end. I used to go, oh, let's go, this is a haunted place, whatever, go in the graveyard, whatever. That has no interest for me anymore. I don't want nothing to do with it, because I think it's it's demonic. It's not. I think somebody dies, you're either in heaven or you're in a very bad place. There's no in between. There's no praying to get somebody in a bad place out. And I think that spirits can mimic whatever, maybe make you smell like Uncle Joe's cigar or pipe or whatever it might be. That's just my opinion on it. But I've kind of formed a lot of stuff, especially since the Arizona 4 kind of formed, and just I keep throwing things in the bucket. And if you have so many pieces of the puzzle, all of a sudden you see some pieces made up with others. Other ones are stand alone, and they I don't throw them out, but I don't give them as much resolve as pieces that I see link up. Like I listen to other people that do these interviews and stuff, and a lot of the stuff will overlay with what we see, and a lot of stuff I haven't heard it, possible, and another stuff but that first night, it's once I was with Kevin up there, and I sat out, and it's like I can't. If you tell me that you see fairies, I cannot say you're lying, whatever. I don't have a leg to stand on because of my past experience. So anyway, I would stay away from the haunted places, because I think those are not of God. But these beings, come on out. We'll put you right between me and Kevin. Or we'll put the Army guys around you. You'll be safe. And if you see this Navy ass running, catch me. So
I think I can catch you.
I think this, when you go from because for me religiously, you just said something about, I was baptized as a Catholic as a baby, and then I became a Baptist, when I was a child, and then I became non-denominational, and now I'm what I am now. I don't adhere to that. I follow Christ completely. No religion, just Christ.
Amen.
And I get backlash from people on both sides, and I'm always getting people that are proselytizing to me, and that's fine as long as it doesn't become pontification. I don't care. I used to believe, and I'm not talking like ages ago, I'm talking just several years ago when I first started on this journey with the show, and the podcast, and the YouTube, which is two different things. But I used to believe that you did not prey out of, this and that. Now I'm not so sure because I have been out of my body since I was young. Thank you for that donation. We appreciate that. I've been out of my body since I was young. And so whenever you go traveling, you start to see things. And one of the things, the only thing I'm really afraid of if I'm out of my body is the underworld. And what I mean is that there is an entire world below our feet. And when I first was introduced to that, I was 14. Like I said, a year before I saw the Dog Man, when they took me to this hole, and it was my stepdad's brothers. And they were vaqueros. They were cow punchers. All of my dad's family and half my mom's family are ranchers and farmers. Just very rural. I barely wore shoes until I was a teenager, because I just ran around. It was summer. And then, if I put on some boots and I went out with my snake charmer, it was to take out some copperheads. We would go around. That was our entertainment. And so over the years, I learned to talk differently too, because I told my dad, not talk like this. I said, Daddy, why does everybody in the family talk like this and you talk different? And my dad says, because people are going to respect me more if I talk like this. So when I went to the city, I said, hi, I'm from Taylor, Texas. And they're like, where the hell are you from, boy? And I'm like, Taylor, Texas. Taylor, it must be nothing but Hicks out there. Well, I don't think so, because I talk like that. And so when you got made fun of, so I changed the way I speak. Now I speak like this. And people will always compliment me. They go, you speak so eloquent. You speak so whatever, refined, whatever. But I was bilingual too. But even my Spanish kind of had a Southern drawl to it because I just grew up talking like that because that's where we're from, in the South. And so now I talk but I had to condition myself, right? So like you were saying, you change with your, as you get older, you change and you go and you formulate you evolve as a person. Well, I did that too, religiously, spiritually, everything about my life, I evolved. And so I changed what I believe. Now I still respect everybody's opinions and I respect, and even Anthony, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. Anthony would question me and stuff. And, we would joke around, but his perspective on things is different. Like he's going to have a different perspective. And if you were to look at Andy, take a look at him, right? And then you look at me. Well, he looks evil, but you look at me, you see I'm good.
Mm-hmm. He looks evil. Put him back on. Put him back on.
Let's see.
That's a beautiful man. What are you talking about?
Look at this evil.
You got that nice trim.
I think that look was toward you, Josh.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at him, you look at me, and then you see of course, I probably do look at my eyebrows. And people were saying, you have satanic eyebrows. They literally said that. And Kramer can tell you this because we were joking about it. He said, did that dude really say that? Yes, they did. They say crazy things because there's crazy people. But if you look at Anthony, his reality is going to be different. If he goes into a convenience store, right, he's going to look like he works there more than I do.
He looks like he owns it.
Anthony's over here looking at me crazy. We're joking around, folks. Everybody PR team knows how it is, right? Don't go tattletale. Oh, they're doing bad, whatever. But the thing is, no, we have fun, but it's going to be a different perspective.
I milk it for all it's worth. I have no shame.
Yeah. Well, you
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, when we do random files, he's the one that attacks immigration. I'm not a one. I'm just along for the ride, right?
I love me. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. But the thing is, being my nephew, and now if you look, my do what? What'd you say, Kevin?
I was just saying, you ought to hear our conversations when we got all four of us out there.
I can imagine. I know Kramer,
Rob, myself, and oh no, you don't have the slightest idea.
Merciless.
We all have to be who we are. You know what I mean? And I think that joking and everything is fine. Because people take it so far with this PC police crap, and I'm not into that. I'm not and I can tell you, I'm the furthest thing from a racist, 100%, and I'm not a gender bias. I don't care. People are people, but we all are different. That's the thing. Once we accept that, then it becomes easier. And I don't feel uncomfortable around different types of people. Some people, they get real uncomfortable, so then they act a rigid way or whatever. I don't really do that. I've always just been able to communicate. But the point is, everybody's perspective is going to be different. And even Anthony and I did not totally see eye to eye on spirituality until recently. Now, what did it though? To go back to what Rob was saying about how he believes, right? What did it was this show and interviewing me, him, and my other co-host, who's my godson, who's actually Vietnamese and Taiwanese. And so, and then my other nephew, my brother's son, he's actually half black. And so we're very ethnically diverse people, but we all have a very conservative leaning. Yes. But when you stop and you come from all these different backgrounds and you take all these different types of people and then we all interview them, we all started kind of becoming the same when it came to our beliefs spiritually, because you started to get the same feedback over and over and over again. And then my own personal experiences led me to believe that the world was not the way we thought it was. And Bigfoot has been on the forefront of a lot of my thoughts. Like, what is it? What could it be? Is it the Iliud? I mean, could it be something that was dropped off here and just thrived? I don't know. And where do we go when we die? Now, that's another thing. I believe that in what Rob, you said too, it's the New Testament. Because in the book of Enoch, the Sheol, or the place of death, was different. But then when Jesus died, right, he goes and he takes the keys of life and death, and it changes. You're not just going to sit there in that purgatorial state anymore. Like you said, Rob, you transcend, you go to heaven or you go to hell. Yeah, you're punished. But there could be something else, because you're waiting until the judgment, because these angels that fell, they're waiting until the judgment, right? And then we're heading into this time period, I believe, the time of sorrows. There's war and there's all this stuff going on, and there's mass confusion, right? And day by day, I'm telling you, and I'm telling the audience this, I day by day still am formulating my beliefs and opinions. And I will be honest with you, gentlemen, you guys coming on tonight, you gave me something to think about. I can't say that about everybody that comes on the show. Some people come on and it's great. We have a good time, whatever, but they're not changing my opinions. But I am going to take into consideration what you guys had to say tonight, because Chris Kramer has said that, but he's one guy, right? And now you guys come on and you say, hey, they're not all bad. I will take that into consideration. I will start looking through some of my encounters that I get. And I will look at those a little closer, because maybe I've been a little biased, and just picking the stories that were more intriguing, because it's overwhelmingly they're more aggression than there is peace. But I think that there could be good and bad. Just like, we're joking earlier, and it's always a hot button topic. Don't talk about race or religion or what. I don't care. There's good and bad in every race, good and bad in every religion. And that is the truth. That really is. Not everybody's going to be the same, right? Some people, they go out of their way to prove a stereotype is 100% correct. And then some people defy that completely. And you just come across it. I think Bigfoot could be the same way.
Well, that just, all that just comes out of blatant ignorance.
Yeah.
Well, it's the 80-20 rule. I mean, if you think about it, the 20% of the people that are wrong are the ones holding the signs, stomping their feet, whatever. The 80% of the people, okay, we had an experience and they're not saying anything, or they don't, we don't care if somebody agrees that they're all bad or whatever. Okay. Or the religion, hey, it's, God gave you free will, but there's the ones, the different clans and all the areas that we go to. I had one time, one night when I was camping, put the dog away, whatever. And we used to do the gift stump, and I had a big old donut. And since Kevin wasn't there, I was going to give away his donut. So I was going to go down the 2-track road and drop this donut off. And as I'm heading that way, I got, the feeling of, we're going to get you. We're going to get you. And I could tell they were young ones. And I stopped and I held the donut in my hand. I said, if you don't stop, I'm going to eat this donut right in front of you and go to bed. Nothing. So I went and put the donut in the stump, but it's all perspective.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, where you're at or whatever. But, you know, as far as he was going to eat me, but I outran him. No,
Yeah.
you know, it's in their perspective, they outran him. But it's ignorance because they don't realize that they can do 50 miles an hour running through trees and not make a sound.
And that to me that smacks of metaphysical. I mean, it just does. There's something they can do. I had a guy recently, we're talking about Missouri. This guy told me and Tony that he stood off a dog man with a stick. And I don't want to be rude or anything, but I was like, I really don't think that's, I don't, you know, and he said, well, that's what he knew I had a weapon and I was willing to use it. And it respected me. I said, I don't believe that at all. I think that
it was a dog man stick. It was a special dog man.
Threw it and it went to fetch it. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It was especially, he was especially trained in Krav Maga with that stick.
Yeah. He got real feisty with me when I told him I didn't believe it. I was like, I don't think that's what it was. I think that's what okay, fine. Whatever. Takes all kinds, man. Anything, guys, before we close it down? We're almost at the 3. We've been talking for 3 hours here, man, with you guys.
I could do another 200. So
yeah, I believe it.
Not tonight.
Yeah,
we could answer a lot of questions if you want to have us on again. And I do have a something that came into mind a couple times. The subjects come up about there's so many more reports of them being, you know, not good creatures,
aggressive,
and aggressive, about them being aggressive, and Rob kind of hit on a little bit there in what he just said was that, you know, 20% of the people are most of the voice that we hear. Now it's a combination of their experience and how they interpret that, but also you're going to probably have a whole lot less people coming to you to tell something positive or supernatural at some degree, because they don't want to be ridiculed. But the ones that will come to you and tell you what a fierce, ferocious creature this is, they have nothing to lose. So you'll hear more of those stories than you will the stories that they're a kind and gentle and loving, you know, species, because they are.
A lot of the stuff that we've experienced is just mind-boggling, and a lot of people won't believe it. But if you go in there and say something tried to eat me, and I seen the shadows moving in the dark, and people suck that up.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true.
And they're going to believe what their mind wants to believe. So it goes a few ways, but I think there's more good encounters than bad. Just the bad encounters are the ones that come out of the woods screaming, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, and so sometime here in the not too distant future, you know, get Chris in here and you know, we go a lot more detail in some of these encounters that we've had, instead of just, you know, brushing across the top of them and you know, and being kind of vague with it, because a lot of this stuff, there's some very extreme details with it. It just they take a little while to tell. You know, you can't just say I went out there and I saw them and this is what happened and it was cool. You know, that, you know, just like with this craft, you know, there was so much that led up to it, you know, that it wasn't just oh wow, you know. I could probably go back 5 years of things that have happened and things that have been told and things that we've seen that at some point in time are going to weave themselves all together. And, you know, some of the stuff that we've come to understand, it's taken years to understand it through multiple different experiences all tying in together. So, yeah, we should come back on and, you know, just pick a couple different items and just really dive deep into them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got to say this in closing here, you know, and I think everybody is familiar with these terrifying encounters that, you know, and we have had many people tell them, and I've told them, and whatever. But it is interesting that you guys come on and you talk about this, that what we've done tonight. I will say this, 90% of the encounters that come across my desk are very brief. They're not really something you can put on a show. They're just very brief. I get them every day. And most of them are kind of like, they're just like, well, I saw this thing and, on the side of the road in Louisiana, it went, or in Oklahoma, and it was on the highway. Or I was on a back road. There's not a big old story there. But if you dig into that person can give you other types of stuff that maybe could link it to something else, and sometimes I'll do that. But for the most part, that's what that is just they're very brief encounters and they're benign. That's 90% of it,
At least.
But the ones that are going to grab you are those scary ones. They're the terrifying ones. But thank you guys for coming on. Thank you to everybody who donated. So Chato, a regular member, and he's always coming on. And we have the call-in show that people come on and tell their encounters or whatever. He said that he feels like he's under spiritual attack, and he asked me to ask the paratroopers to pray for him if we can pray for Chato. Everybody knows him. He's always coming on here and talking crazy. He goes and talks crazy on Abe's show, but not crazy like crazy. But he's an Army guy. Right, so he's an Army guy. So that explains why he talks that craziness. My brother's an Army guy. He's in the chat right now, so like I said, I can talk about it. So I got to team up with Rob so we could razz my Army friends here, guys. No offense to Kevin and you guys. I'm just messing around.
Well, you have to remember somebody has to charge the beach, and it ain't Navy.
The Navy gives them a ride. Right?
Oh yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. But we had a great show tonight. I really appreciated everybody coming on. What was that, Rob?
If they win, we'll pick them up. Like Kevin says, we only like winners.
Once you're done at the prom, you get the ride home, right? You're done, right? But so we great time. We had a great time, guys. Thank you to everybody who donated. Simsky, really appreciate all the donations, especially, but everybody that donated. There was Mickey G renewing her membership, Dalton, Nathan, everybody. Yeah, I just really appreciate everybody who donated. Rita, as always, and KM, Hill Country Dew, and Simsky, you really outdid yourself today. That was amazing. You just the donations, and Tommy Youngs, thank you. David Buckholz, member for 24 months, and everybody who's a member. And don't forget the Patreon. There's a $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier, and each tier gives you a bigger, better swag bag. And with my new book coming out, the only way you're going to get it autographed is you can buy it on Amazon, and that's fine. But if you want to join the Patreon, I can send it to you autographed. On the higher tier, you get my book, and then the last tier, you get both of you get 2 of the 3 books. And I'm going to give you a date tentatively for the next book. I'm thinking that it should be done by the end of September. And that will be about the haunted house that I lived in South Austin, because we are interviewing people pretty quickly that were there. And my brother is working on his part of the book. I've already done mine. So that's pretty much it. The vampire book should be out any day now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of Paranormal Roundtable PRT. And thank you to Chris Kramer for introducing me to his friends. Let's take one more look at this. This is crazy. Like, I want to see this again. That's crazy. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably go on to a show where the host is handsome and he's very knowledgeable and likable and he's a great guy. That's probably
first one.
I've not.
I do know a guy. Let me see if I can.
As to one of those.
Let me see if I got his number, Kevin. I don't know. I'll
Find somebody.
my Rolodex.
See if they can pencil you in.
He's got a scary looking co-host. So look at this guy. Look at that.
Yeah, that other guy we're talking about.
I'm messing around, dude. Me and Anthony, we always mess around. Guys, tomorrow night, don't forget, if you like the truth and you want to hear about what's really going on, about, Iran, Israel, Trump, all this other stuff, just show up tomorrow night. Me and my co-host, Anna Choate. She's a right conservative talking personality person. Go look at her Facebook. She's got a ton of people that follow her. She'll be on tomorrow night with me as usual at 8:00, Random Files. And then Saturday, the real Random Files on Rumble, where we can say whatever and they can't come and stifle our freedom, guys. Okay. So we'll see you guys. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Kevin. I see you guys. Y'all be safe. Go Army, go Navy. All right.
We win.
Here, I was inviting you.
Boo the
first
Eagles,
billing on
though.
that
No Eagles. What was that? What do you
We
think?
got first billing on that one.
Yeah.
Go Army, go Navy.
Yeah.
Army was
We'll
first
see you
billing.
guys. All right. Good night. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Paranormal Roundtable. Not our usual nights of Thursday night. We didn't get, as many people as we usually do, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people on the replay. And my thanks to the Arizona 4 for coming on and talking to us. Remember, tomorrow night we'll be on the Random Files, 8 o'clock. I'm sure that at least 100 of you will show up, right? It's a fairly new channel still. We're still, whatever in our infancy, but it's growing. And it's a project that I feel very passionate about, just like I do about the paranormal and all this other stuff. Crazy stuff. We'll see you guys. Good night.
A dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the ocean night. When you see the Flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now